All right, y'all, we're going to watch the Dune livestream number 4. Where they're going to talk about previewing, giving us a peek at mid-to-endgame play. So we're going to check that out. I have no idea where I need to be out of the way. So I'll slide down here for now. I'll hide myself as needed if I'm going to be in the way. But I do want to watch this and check it out. Do a little live react. See how things are going to look later in the game, which will be well after what we got to see in the beta weekend, which I didn't stream, but I did play 27 hours of. So I'm really excited to get hopped into the game here.
Few survive this world, but those who do awaken. The desert wants you dead, off-worlder. If the sands don't take you, the storms will swallow you whole. But you don't have to walk this path alone. In every danger, there is opportunity. The foundation of something greater. A power waiting to be harnessed. Desert power. Some claim to rule this planet.
I can't wait.
But Arrakeen is yours to explore. To fight for.
We're watching their live stream number 4. They're going to give us a peek at mid-to-endgame play. They're going to show some stuff about the deep desert, which I know nothing really about, except it's a much bigger area, and it's PvP enabled. So we'll see how all that goes. I expect it's essentially going to be like a big open free-for-all or faction versus faction PvP battleground. Well, you'll probably be able to get lost because it's massive, but collect lots of good resources.
Arrakeen.
I will say that with almost, like, this is a cutscene, but almost everything else that we've seen so far is actually footage from the game. So it actually really looks really good, too. Yeah, and now they did say, one of the devs did say that you'll be able to do the entirety of the story content without PvP if you don't want to. I'm sure there will be combat involved, but the combat with the AI is typical gameplay stuff. I don't think it'll be a big deal.
Hello everybody to our, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, last developer live stream before our head start and the full launch of Dune Awakening. I'm not
9 days.
I have the honor to be your host for today. And I think I'm not the only one when I say I'm so excited for you to experience what our teams have been working on for the past years. So some of you have gotten a taste of what the game feels and looks like during the beta weekend. But today we go beyond the beta and show you a glimpse of mid- and endgame of Dune Awakening. We have first a little segment where we talk beta and combat. We then have live gameplay of Haga Basin and also social hubs. We go into live gameplay of the deep desert. And as always, we have a Q&A in the end where we'll be connecting questions from you, from chat, live during the stream. But before we dive into all of that, let's watch a brand new video.
9 days. I'm ready. I'm so ready for the early access.
Combat in Dune Awakening is the fusion of melee, shields, ranged, abilities, and vehicles. As you progress, your tactical options expand, allowing you to express yourself through different styles of play. In the beginning, combat is a short, brutal affair. Do everything you can to knock your opponents off balance and open them up for a retaliating strike. Keep an eye on your stamina, or find yourself in trouble. Early abilities change the paradigm.
Melee combat did feel a little clunky during the beta. I know they've been working on it, so I hope it's going to feel just a little more fluid. Has great potential, I think, for good fun.
Charge into melee range. Ranged weapons like the Mauler pistol allow you to maintain distance and take down enemies from afar, until a shielded enemy enters the fray. Boltzmann shields change the nature of combat. Their kinetic barrier can only be pierced by slow-moving objects. Fast on defense, slow on attack. Swords, daggers, kinjals, and rapiers are effective for dealing with shielded enemies, but without a shield of your own, you will quickly be overwhelmed by enemy fire. But the shields also have a weakness beyond the slow blade. Ranged attacks cannot be fired from inside an active shield, creating a window of opportunity for the others to exploit. Specialized range weapons can counteract shields. The drill shot rifle fires drilling darts that will attach to a shield and slowly pass through. The disruptor fires statically charged darts at variable speeds to overwhelm the power supply of the shield. Abilities can turn the tide of any battle. Swordmasters use their deflection ability to close the distance and bring their crippling strikes to bear on their enemies.
It looked like he was deflecting actual darts from the guns. If that's a thing, I didn't know it.
Bene Gesserit stop enemies in their tracks with the power of the voice, or use their Bindu dash to quickly close the gap. Mentats control the battlefield with their sentinel, or use the Hunter-Seeker for a silent takedown. Abilities, ranged weapons, shields and melee work in concert to allow mastery. But beyond mastery lies the spice. Consume it to awaken. Transcend human limits with new abilities and prescience, seeing what others cannot, the narrow path to victory. Combine these techniques freely to experience sandbox combat. Create unique strategies and bring them to bear against your foes. Always remember, Arrakeen takes the weak.
The way that the shields worked with melee and ranged and all that seemed pretty intuitive to me, right? They charge back up pretty quick when you stop firing your ranged weapons, so it's not like you have to do it by hand. You know, and they make all the difference in the world when you're in melee, of course. Although, it's got a pretty good dodge mechanic, too.
And diving straight into our first segment, showing you mid-game in the Haga Basin towards endgame as well. But first, let's, of course, introduce our guests for today. Here on this side, we did let him out of the doghouse. We have Joel Bylos, aka Chris Knife, our creative director. Joel, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Hi everybody. My name is, I have to admit it, Joel Bylos this time. So because this is the last live stream, I'm going to admit that my name is Joel.
Love it.
It's fine. And yep, looking forward to talking about everything we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Yes, and on this side we have Scott Jr., our executive producer on the game, new face.
Yeah, finally let me out. You know,
Yes.
The game is done.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's good to see you both, and good to talk about Dune finally.
Very
Yeah,
excited.
I think that they
Scott,
probably
let
will
us
have
do a
something
little bit of
eventually
throwback to beta.
in Star Citizen. I just
players,
hope
as mentioned, have had
it doesn't destroy.
let's say not a small taste, but a taste
Whatever
of the
balance
game,
we have at that
survival
point.
aspect of the game. Maybe we can have an infographic where we actually see what the players. In
I
the
would
beta
actually
were
love to see
able
some decent
to
melee in
experience.
Star Citizen.
Yeah,
I think it would be very
infographic.
cool.
What was the most valuable takeaway from this beta?
I think getting the game in so many people's hands so they can understand what we made. When we started working on Dune, we wanted to make more than just a normal survival game. We wanted to make a very Dune game, first and foremost. And so that's not obvious, right, what we were doing, because we were taking a lot of risks trying to do some new takes on things to make them more Dune than survival. So we have a lot of people finally being able to play the game and understand, what we're trying to do. So that was great. And then seeing the feedback and the reactions and all the social media posts, all the YouTube videos, it's been fantastic seeing all the feedback. My personal takeaways is that we had a couple technical issues that we were able to sort out and
Desync
pretty quickly. Some issues with some crashes and freezes that we've already fixed. So I'm really excited to get the game.
I actually didn't have a single problem with any crashing, so I guess I was lucky in that regard. Of course, I didn't get to play the first day.
No, I mean, for me, it's just a lot of fun to watch people finally playing. Like, someone asked me on Discord like a year ago, like, tell us about the game. They wanted me to describe the game. They weren't in the beta, and I was like, well, it's very hard to describe because it's something unique. Yes, it has some familiar survival stuff, but we've layered it all underneath the Dune IP, and it's really hard to describe how all of those things come together to create something that I feel is kind of unique and interesting, right? And so, I think it was fun for people to really get their hands on it. I mean, we've been talking with the closed beta players for a while, but seeing people in the world having it, streaming it, putting up YouTube videos, talking about what they were experiencing, I think, importantly, people finding out whether they like or dislike the game as well, because I really like people to be able to make an informed choice about what they're buying as well. So, yeah.
100%. I think one thing I can add to this as well is, like, for me, having a little bit more of a bird's eye view of how the developers and the teams were reacting to this, because me too, we have been so close to the game for such a long time, you can't really judge it anymore, like, from a normal, like, gamer perspective. And then seeing all those amazing kind of, obviously there was feedback as well that we kind of needed to address and things. More on that in a second. Yeah. But it was just so fun to see how everyone kind of was like, no, we have something here. Like, people are enjoying it and they're getting it and they're like having fun playing the game. And that was really great to see from that perspective as well. Like, just overall.
In the moments like people almost getting eaten by the sandworm, right? Those are very tense moments that happen in the game, and just seeing the reactions for people has been fantastic.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was one thing I really enjoyed, was also like watching people coming in, I don't want to say skeptics, but they kind of, as they hit the beats of the game, as they progress through the game, in the beginning they're like, okay, this is this, and this is this, and they kind of, and then like they're like, wait, you can combine the suspensor belt and the Shiga claw, and you can, oh wait, you can do these things? Oh, cool! I got and suddenly the game, like, it's opening up more and more, and they're really starting to understand the philosophy of how we approach the development with the sandbox, right? So, I don't know. As I saw people experience, I was just like, oh god, people they're seeing it and doing it. It's
they
great.
Get it. They have those light bulb moments that you were hoping for, right?
Yeah, and they just were growing more positive as they played more, right? And that to me is huge. It's really important.
Yeah. And it's, as I mentioned, that are the things that are really great to see from.
See, I've not played a lot of survival games. A little bit of this and that.
The first slide was showing us,
a couple hours total
so it's just
of a few of them.
Of the game, right?
And none of them really grabbed me the way this one did. I mean, I am a fan of the lore, so that's part of it. But I think they did a really good job.
Of the stream as well. But
it's very engaging.
Going back to the beta weekend, there were, of course, some things that weren't that great, that didn't go as planned. One of those moments was, of course, the PvP moment in the broadcast, and when it comes to melee combat specifically. But we have actually worked on this and addressed it. Scott, maybe you can give a bit of context.
Yeah, so we were aware of this issue. We've been in closed beta for a year and a half almost now, right? The new combat came in August of last year.
Yep.
And we've been making tweaks based on feedback and playtests that we've been doing. So going into the beta, we knew that there was that issue around stamina and what would happen if it ran out. And
stam lock was a real problem from what I saw from other people.
So we patched out a change to it. Do you want to go over the details of that?
I mean, the high level changes it's something like this now, right? So heavy and slow blade have been separated as attacks. So a heavy staggers people now, and then a slow blade finishes them off, like, or goes into the slow blade attack. So you actually, now holding the button, you'll actually do a heavy attack. all attacks have now got proper stamina costs attached to them. And then in addition, if you're in a place where you're getting into the stunlock situation, you get an ability which is called Second Wind. It just pops on. It starts to restore your stamina bar quickly so you can dodge out of any sort of stunlock in that situation. So yeah, we've been doing balance around stamina costing on everything. We've been doing balance around the way, attacks work. I think it's all working pretty well. Scott and I did a fair bit of PvP ourselves.
We're pretty bad at
on
it.
the top of a shipwreck.
Did you do well?
Yeah, I won. Yeah.
One, and Joel won day 2. Maybe?
I think you won day 1,
Yeah.
but that was because on the second day I slotted the Bene Gesserit technique, the Mentat technique, which allowed me to avoid his voice power.
Sure.
And then he wasn't able to
I
get me
see.
anymore. So then it was fun. Like it's
There you
fun
go,
to
rock,
see
paper,
how
scissors approach.
how the dynamics work,
yeah.
right? So it was a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, I think we're still, we put it on the closed beta. We're getting feedback from people and testing. But one thing is important
Right,
to stress,
that's
right? It's a
right,
live
more
game.
shooter
And we're
extractor.
going to continue to patch and update. So we'll be paying a lot of attention to what happens as the game goes live.
I
and as
think
people are playing.
from what I saw,
And,
right,
we're here
which
to
is
make the
still
game
early
better. That's our
game,
job. So
it was pretty engaging.
absolutely.
There
That's
felt like there
really
was enough story going on in
But
between the
enough
trials.
just a dry talk.
And
Let's
the
jump
worm being a
into
constant threat,
some
and
gameplay. So we
anytime you're in the
actually
deep
have,
sand, and then having to
an
worry about the
example of
daylight, the sun and all of that. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It was very engaging for
when
me.
you said dry
Glam
examples, I thought you were going to break out the wine. But let's.
Maybe I should. Maybe I would go better with alcohol. But yes, so we have some group gameplay, mid game actually.
Yeah, mid-ish game,
We could
yeah.
probably just comment on it as
Sure.
well, what we're seeing and how it's different from what people have seen in the beta specifically.
Sure, you want.
Sure, yeah, I can go. So if you played to the Vermilius Gap, the journey is still very isolated to yourself, right, and your sand bike.
So
and
this
you've
is
got a small
vehicle
base.
gathering, which
As
I
you're
haven't been
moving
able to
into the
see
next
until
areas,
now.
The Hogget, or this is the Rift, right? You unlock the buggy, and the great thing about the buggy is it allows you to start mining from your vehicle, and the resource requirement as you go further and further into the game is more intense. But the buggy and other systems like that allow you to increase your harvest rate also.
Yep.
And this is a fantastic part, right? Just
Yeah.
moving around, going to the different resources, either switching yourself to the turret, or if you have a friend, having the friend man the mining laser, right? And then being able to harvest resources.
Yeah, the buggy's a multi-seat vehicle, right? So when you get to the mid-game, it's good to start crafting that, right? And then you can get out
Yeah.
there and you can harvest. It has a huge inventory space as well, compared to like the sand bike or what the players can carry. Our philosophy of design with the game, like I've seen people asking for more inventory space on their character, but our philosophy of design for the game was that you build vehicles and they become your inventory space. You can see how big this is and how much volume it can hold. So the buggy really is like your mining vehicle of choice as you get into the mid-game. And if you're playing with friends, someone's on the turret, someone's in the driver's seat, you can have a friend in the passenger seat as well. You can bring multiple people, but you can also just like do this alone, jump between seats. In the interaction menu, you just select, I want to drive now, I want to sit in the
Sounds a
turret
little
seat
bit
and mine.
like mole
So I
solo
wanna talk a
mining. I
little
don't
bit
know how
about this
fun
location,
that's
'cause we're in
going to
this
be.
place called the Haggard
But we'll
Rift.
see.
And as you can see, it's this dark, gloomy.
This is a cool
basically
setting.
A geological ditch. And Hebert talked about this in the book. He talked about the folk of Pan and Graben. And this Graben are these big ditches, these big chasms that you have on Dune, on Arrakis. And in here, it's like the sunlight doesn't really penetrate to the bottom. And down here, there's been this ongoing war of attrition between the Atreides and the Harkonnen over this shipwreck, which is central to this area. And then as you come up out of the Haggard Rift, you come back into these other areas of the map. And it's like, it's a different
Me too.
style and tone to the desert. And I know people have been concerned, or at least been worried that like everything's one biome. But as you go down
Yeah.
into the Rift, you feel it's a very
That was
different
cool.
place.
That was a very
And
different
shout out to
setting.
our world director, Jeff. Like one of his big
I do
key
too.
points about the world was making sure that we had a lot of
They're very stark
and I think Haggard
in their
Rift is
beauty,
like
or
an
beautiful in
absolutely
their
perfect
starkness,
example of how
whichever,
you, can just keep going down and down through these galleries, and there's bases built up through the entire side. It's just this really fun place to be.
It's like, make it deeper, make it deeper.
Exactly.
I remember he mentioned that.
And this is where all the lights come into play. So headlights on vehicles, personal lights on players come in. At this point, this is where you start bringing things, and yeah, it's fun.
And it's so huge because then you fly in an ornithopter too. It's
Yes.
like wide, and yeah, it's really fun to explore that way too.
And the music and the setting and the
Yeah.
atmosphere when you're down, right?
Yeah.
You've been in the harsh desert and the Vermilius Gap with like the bright lights on you the entire time, going like from shadow to shadow to preserve water. When you get down there, like the music team's done a very good job of just setting the atmosphere. It feels almost cool when you're down there.
That's our base.
That's very cool.
Too, I think,
yeah.
where we're heading. So you can see
rip
the
there.
wreckage of like the wall. You can see that's a deserter base. Like because of the war of attrition that's been happening here, some of the Atreides and Harkonnen have deserted, and they've set up little camps around here, and they create like they're obviously hazardous. But now we're coming to a base that we created for this, and this is the Atreides base building set.
Yeah.
And this kind of, I think this is this is a great example of what you can do outside of the square blocks that everybody was seeing in beta because they only had access to the first couple of sets.
Yeah, and what's important as you get into the mid-game, you start building up your infrastructure, and that's just as important as your equipment or your vehicles. So even if you lose a vehicle, right, like you make your buggy and you get unlucky enough to get eaten by a sandworm, like the infrastructure will allow you to get back on your feet way quicker than that first.
Can we stop for a second and show a pro tip here? I really want to pro tip something. So, can someone go and use a chest?
Yes. Oh, you want to mention my favorite thing?
So if you go to the wait, is that a chest? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're in a chest in the game and you have a vehicle anywhere on your land claim, you can go to the top of the inventory on the left there where it says backpack. Where it says backpack on the left-hand side, whoever's driving, up there, and click the drop down, and you can select the vehicle storage. This is a
that's very
massive
cool.
quality of life for getting things in and out of your vehicles.
Yes.
Because we see that, we know it's a little bit hidden.
Reminds me of Star Citizen, right? You got stuff in a box in your ship, and you gotta take the box out, put it in the lift, and send it down, and unload it, and bring it back up, and put it back in the ship.
Click any chest.
That's a nice thing.
Drop down and start taking things out of the back of that vehicle.
It's something that the beta tester suggested, isn't it? Like directly?
Yes.
Yeah.
This was something people were asking for during the closed beta.
That's
when we
excellent.
implemented it. Yeah.
Another thing that I mentioned before, which is such a small quality of life thing, but we have that too, is you don't have to empty your chests before you can move them.
Oh, exactly.
This
yeah.
is like, that's just a complete mind-blowing quality of life change to me. That's like so nice.
Yeah. So the game works in these phases of like, in the beginning, you need a sandbike to get off walking around, right? Then you move to the phase where you want a buggy to help you to harvest and gather resources. And then you move to the phase where you want to start building your first ornithopter. And so we have an example of this here. And the vehicle building in the game is very cooperative, right? You can see that these different, we're now adding permissions to allow people to help us to work on this ornithopter. So this, these guys are all in a group. And so
Imagine
can cooperate
permissions for your bases and vehicles.
I think this is the medium.
Star Citizen, are you paying attention?
Call it. So it's the medium tier. But the largest ornithopter, the transport ornithopter, also requires.
Yeah, me too.
A lot of parts and a lot of people. So it's kind of part of the way we designed this was to make sure that we had this collaborative building system in the game, both for buildings and for vehicles.
This is my favorite part of the game, just the building the vehicles actually physically in the world, right? Putting the pieces there, working with your friends to make all the parts of them, and then like mixing and matching the different modules to make the vehicle, fit the role that you want to use the vehicle with for that moment.
Yeah, and vehicles come with different module sets, right? So you can put inventories on some. You can, like we talked about the buggy. You can actually have a rocket turret on top of the buggy, which I think you saw in the combat trailer earlier. Yeah. You saw the buggy firing rockets. So you can have different types of things on the different vehicles, and we'll continue to expand that post-launch as well, making the vehicles more and more useful with utility. It's fun, right? And then I guess the other side of this is that we can start talking about variants and swatches, which is our customization system.
He's actually going to change in a second. We'll actually see that. So there we go.
Wow.
So that
was quite a change.
These guys are aligned with the Atreides.
Boo.
So here we just switched out the Atreides. And a variant, just to put the distinction in place, a swatch allows you to change the color sets, but a variant allows you to change the physical visual.
The actual
so this
model.
this is the shape of the Atreides. It's got the hawk-like lines. It's got the sharp angles.
Boo.
And the Harkonnen have more of an insectile kind of feel to them.
Yeah.
Clearly,
And
she's Harkeen.
and you earn these variants in this case by leveling up in the factions, which is a part of the mid-game. We aren't really showing a ton of that today, but as you join a faction, go through their quest lines, you earn access to these kind of variants and things like that, and then you're able to use the Atreides colors and swatches and variants.
Yeah, both on vehicles and your armor, right? So
Yes, vehicles, armors.
You can represent with your Harkonnen clothes running in the deep desert, perhaps.
And that's it's important to note that like a lot of our philosophy around this was as well, like you create so let's say you create a tier 4, like a mid-tier armor set, and it's like a scout armor. You can variant swap that to look like any other scout armor in the game. You can't turn it into a heavy armor or a combat armor because we want people to understand in PvP what they're fighting. But you can change it into any other visual of a scout armor, and it's the same with social clothing. It's the same with, obviously combat armor, and it's the same with still suits, which I mentioned, which are kind of our 4 major armor types in the game.
And as you mentioned, oh sorry.
No, I was just going to say social medium, social scout, combat, and still suits.
Yeah. And what they're showing right now is the vulture mode and the ornithopters. So ornithopters are great, right? Because you have your helicopter mode where you can move in all directions. You can switch to the vulture mode, and then it's more of like a glider where you're going up and down to gain speed.
Yep.
Yeah, basically a airplane mode and
I don't think it has analog access support, but people were talking about being able to use like joy to key to find sticks.
Actually, this is fun. Like when you get to too high in altitude, you start increasing your fuel consumption, which prevents people from going too high in the game. Also good to know for people who want to stay, close to the ground. And now we're flying through an area of the map known as the Shield Wall, which is on the para-northern side of the Haggard Basin. We can talk about the para-directions at some point, because that's always awkward and weird. But because para-north is really south in relative terms to the map. But this is these are rocky areas, so the sandworm is less of a threat up here, but the enemies are much harder, and the resources you gather up here are much more value, right, to what you're doing. So these are areas where you harvest.
And the first time you're coming here, you don't actually have an ornithopter. More than likely, you don't, right? So then you're having to make the choice of.
And this is also a PvE area, right?
Really hard
the only other thing that would be PvP in this kind of area would be is if you go to one of the shipwrecks.
Ultimately, it's about choice.
The static shipwrecks. That some of those have PvP envelopes around them where you can kill each other.
On the one you want.
Yeah, and like
which
this
obviously
area
you can
now
choose
is
to
known as the
avoid.
Uldum as well, and the Uldum has a little more plant growth and a little more greenery, and that's because the Uldum is an area where they were doing experiments on some of the land, and we won't talk too much about it. But yeah, we're going to fly over. I guess this is
our second base.
This is our second base on the Shield Wall. Yeah, so this is the guild base. So this is further into the game. People have progressed a bit. They're probably, so we divide the game into 4 phases: survive, protect, expand, and control. So this would be, here you're either on the expand or the control part of the game, the sort of last 2 phases, right? So you've got a bigger guild, you're working with a larger group of people potentially. You can still play the game solo at this point. Everything just takes a little longer and is a little harder to do on your own, right? And you can still do it. You can craft these ornithopters. There's no problem. But, we encourage people to play together and work together in a multiplayer game.
And we're showing off some building sets we've never shown before.
Yes.
I was going to say, this is a different building set.
Yes, exactly. So this is actually the Jome, that once Jome building set. But those round windows and the ceiling pieces, pretty much everything that's more metal than white stone, those are actually going to be Twitch drops that you will get, so they kind of expand on the existing Jome tier set, which I love them. I think they're very cool. Yeah. They're really cool looking.
Yeah, and you can see what we'd expect a guild base to look like, right? Lots of production going on. I love.
Hey, what's up, Glitch?
It was something that we were really pushy on in the game development, making sure that the fabricators actually show the items being crafted as they craft, so you see them form up inside the fabrication units. And yes, I know this isn't exactly something from Dune lore. This is one of the places where I was like, I have to make a concession to the game. They don't have fabricators, they're not mentioned in the lore, but it's fine because it's cool. Rule of cool in some cases.
Yeah. This is a good use of rule of cool.
Yeah. There's also circuits. Have we ever talked about circuits before?
Nope, not actively. You can please feel free.
The circuits thing is very cool too.
It's not as intense as Factorio.
If you've got a big base
or anything like that. But you are able to set up different circuits in your base, so you can have some containers feeding into some fabricators feeding into others. You'll never have 100% automation like you would get in a factory builder game, but it does enable you as you get to mid game to start having a fair bit of automation in the game when you're playing, because water and electricity become quite a burden if you don't start upgrading your gear and the infrastructure like we were talking about before. So we introduced passive ways to get water, which is a huge help, because water in the mid and to the end game even is really important through all aspects, not just survival, but also crafting.
For my fellow lore nerds out there, we call the passive water generation wind traps.
I was just about to say there are actually some wind traps on this, and
Yeah.
we've seen some
Where game magic doesn't exist, yes. Game
And
magic is
yeah,
just
it's like you also
suggested.
can hear how
Will one
much
day
bigger
happen
those
in Star
refineries are.
Citizen.
We also saw a spice refinery as well, actually. Like
Yeah, there was
the
spice
round- the round
refineries there,
tubes.
yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and that we just saw a room with some decorations in it as well.
Yeah,
like
we
just to you can pimp up your area in a sense, like put out holograms. It was quite funny because here's a fun anecdote from development. The artist
no.
made a bunch of the artist made a bunch of pot plants
Oh,
for people to put in their
no.
bases, and I was like, guys, it's June.
There is no water to water those
So we have a
things
lot of holograms
in
of
your
plants now.
buildings. Yeah,
I was like,
they
we
look
can
great though.
then I keep saying the word holograms. Sorry, everyone. Solido projections.
Solido projections.
Solido projections of
You'd be
plants.
yelling at yourself.
Oh my god, I'd be so mad. I'd be so mad if
You're
I
like-
wasn't me right now.
If you like decorations, you need to explore quite a bit.
Yes.
Right? You know, we don't unlock them all.
Yes.
Go to trade posts, go to places where there are people. You can unlock tons of the stuff that you're seeing around in the
Yes.
base here.
Exactly.
You have to work a little bit for
You'd
it.
have to work
though.
a little
Yeah.
bit for it. Yeah.
Like
Which is good.
explore,
That means you're
find
getting
people.
rewards for doing stuff, tangible
And obviously
rewards.
these doors, the pentashield doors.
And it's
things
not
as well,
just
like
a
once
stupid
you
box
reach a certain
chair in a
stage,
hangar that's going to
the
reset every
shield goes out
patch,
from
and you
the
don't have any
back
place
door
else to use them, CIG.
Exactly.
And that's really useful for when you you have flying vehicles, you want to land in hangars, you don't have to wait for a door to open.
Some of the cool stuff I've seen in beta is they will make a huge base, but it's kind of covering a road. So they'll open up
yep.
the middle of it and then set the permissions on the Pinto shields so that you can actually drive
Public,
through it. So
yes.
you can't go into their base, but you can still go through the middle of their
Yes.
base,
Yeah.
which is nice.
It's nice.
Yeah, I agree.
Good guy players.
Good guy players, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're actually gonna go up to the roof now and build a transport ornithopter.
nice.
Great.
Which
No.
not
No.
yet. Okay, not yet.
No, we're not.
Excuse me.
No, we're not. We're
gonna
wrong.
run around the base a little
not
bit more.
wrong. We're
Yeah.
still
Oh.
doing other things.
That's an. Yeah, okay.
But
Few ornithopters
What
hovering
we'd
around.
like to do is, because we're actually going to go to a social hub later on, and we'd like to throw that to, unfortunately we can do only Twitch, so I'm sorry YouTube, we'll love you over there too. It's just our bot is being a bit difficult, so we'd like to do a poll, throw that to Twitch chat only for today.
I didn't know they
Which
had it.
of the social
Twitch
hubs you'd like to see? We have 2 available in
going
the game
today.
right now.
When I
One
checked
is
their
Arrakeen,
socials
the other
page, I
one is
didn't see a
Harso.
Twitch page
And
for
you
them.
can choose which of those you'd like to see today. So we give you like a few minutes to vote on that while our rock stars and wizards behind the scenes are preparing that poll for you, if it's not running already. And yeah, we can talk a little bit.
One of the cool things that they were just showing there is the vehicle backup tool.
Yes.
I don't know if we've talked about that on stream too much, but once you build a sand bike or a light ornithopter,
I see.
you
It's
can
a
actually build a
Funcom
tool
channel.
to hide it, or like, what's
All right.
the lore reason, Joel?
Let's go with the Ritchie's perfected miniaturization
Sure,
technology,
sure.
and the player is able to miniaturize their vehicle, and it only works for vehicles that have nothing in their inventory.
Correct. Yeah.
And 2 types of vehicle: the sand bike and
Yes.
the light scout ornithopter.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, we're flying past.
Highly recommend always using it, right? When
Yes.
you're going to a location,
Yes.
land. store
Vehicle
your
backup
vehicle,
tool is immensely
don't let it get
useful.
destroyed by a sandstorm.
I learned
Exactly.
that the hard way myself too, so I will never do that mistake ever again.
I see we've gone with spoiler
Ooh.
territory here, and we're flying over the giant power station of Misatariel.
With a
Don't
dead
want- I
worm
don't
over the
want
top
to
of it?
Talk too much about it, but we'll let people figure that out in the game.
I want to see the lore on that.
Me too.
It's
Mine
really
too.
absolutely amazing.
Mine too.
And the
Mine
story
too.
involved in it is
So
really cool.
please look forward to
Yeah.
it.
And there we have someone doing their vulture roll, which is very nice. Can you hit your scanner as well, whoever's flying?
I'm not sure to do that. Oh,
Yeah, so
okay.
like that's vehicles obviously get like players got hand scanners probably in the beta, but now you're up to the stage where you actually have a scanner.
What's this
and you're
madness?
scanning entire, like,
Useful
islands
information
by
when you
pumping
scan an
seed.
area
So
that
the
you will
idea is
record on the
again,
map.
As you progress, everything just takes a
Sweet.
step up in how quickly you can do things. We wanted the game to feel, well, you've put in the effort to get this vehicle. We're going to give you the convenience of being able to scan an entire island very quickly, right?
Yeah.
This is a trade post. This is the Crossroads trade post.
Look at the poll. It's super tight. I love that. Like right now, Arrakeen is slightly winning, so let's go,
Harco
Harkonnen.
Village is cooler.
I agree though. Well, both
We're going to see some footage from Harko no matter what we do.
Cool,
Sure, that's
though.
true.
Both are super cool, but I do like.
Yeah,
Harko
it's
Village
just
personally.
because you're an evil person and
I
you
am.
like Harkonnens.
I am just like
Something
evil
about
for
that
life.
whipping noise.
No, you know the fun part is I always try to go evil in like games where you have a choice, and then I end up
course.
good anyway.
Yeah,
like,
because
bad
you
for
can't
the-
bring yourself to do
Feel
it.
bad for those
No,
characters,
I
right?
was just- yeah.
So these are the pilots. They were disabled in the beta. You may have met one at the first trade post if you were playing.
And we're going to Arrakeen, by the way.
We're going to
one.
Arrakeen?
Yes.
All right.
Okay,
It's fine.
so we're going to go and visit Arrakeen. All right, that's cool. The pilot only takes cash. So you can't have credit. You have to have cash. So we're heading to Arrakeen.
She doesn't use it on sunscreen, that's for sure, because she was really sunburned. Like, so let's just get that out there. Yes. But yeah, you need to have the cash on you as
Yeah.
well.
One of the features in the game that we haven't really spoken about too much. I mean, well, we have a bit. We've spoken, but I don't think people picked it up in the beta. Oh, here we are. Well, I'll let us arrive because this is cool.
Wow, look at the size of that big ornithopter there on the right, man.
And as we arrive in Arrakeen, so one of the features we have in the game is the CommuniNet system. And when a player opens their CommuniNet, they can choose radio stations to listen to in the game, a la like a Fallout game or a GTA game. And this guy, Finno Gary, he runs this trash shop, but he actually has a show on the Atreides radio. And if you listen to the show, it's his daughter talking about their adventures on how they got all this salvage that shows up. So it's kind of fun to just like narratively listen. You know, we tried to connect
The
everything
in-world
This is,
radio
again,
stations are
I want-
actually very
I want to make this
entertaining.
point because I feel like I see it sometimes online, and it's a little, let's say, disheartening. People, we were advertising the game and saying the word MMO, and then people were like, oh, they took all that off, and we took it off because we do feel like this is a huge world completely worth exploring with lots of other people. But it's not an MMORPG,
Yeah.
and people were getting confused by that.
Yeah.
So we took it down. But I think it's clear when you look at places like our social hubs, our exchange system, our banking system, that we have a lot of elements from those style of games here, right? So yeah, we're looking at the exchange right now.
From what I've seen, it's an
Players can
MMO. It's
post things
just
on
not
the
a
exchange. This
traditional
is the
MMORPG.
banker.
It's just the way they segment
One of
and
the things here is you can
instance
actually
the
store,
worlds and the
items
sub-worlds.
and credits, right?
That's
So
where
say you're
people,
gonna
I think,
take
would get irked about it. but-
vacation, you're worried about your base getting destroyed for some reason. You can actually fly to Arrakeen and dump a bunch of stuff in here.
I was actually thinking, is like one of the great things here is his mustache.
Sure,
Yeah,
that's
I was
also
expecting it to
fantastic.
come in on the mustache.
I mean, we've all seen the
Fantastic mustache. You also pay taxes here.
Yes.
Like, because
Yeah.
you need to, like, for the bigger
Gotta keep your
sub
shields
fees, you
up.
actually need to make sure you have your taxes paid to the
and this is where you pay. This is the
Emperor?
imperial consulate, as we call it.
Yeah.
This is where you go to pay your taxes to the Imperium. So the first sub-fief console that you place on Arrakis, the basic one that you place in the starting area, you don't have any taxes to pay on that. But once you get a bit further into the game and you start building bigger bases, you pay taxes. Once you start expanding that land claim, which you do through these land claim extenders, you start paying more tax. So the idea is that the larger guilds who have more members, who are more capable of achieving things in the game, they have a higher tax rate because
Yeah.
they're building out larger spaces. And that, that's our way of making it fair for people who only play solo as well. Like, so they don't have as much tax to pay.
The other important thing about the cities is that's where you really progress through the faction storylines, right? So here's where you're going to come and officially join the Atreides or join the Harkonnens and
Yep.
start vying for the Landsraad system and getting involved in the politics of the entire world.
And this is where the advanced trainers are as well.
Yeah.
For people who want to progress past the basic level of training in their particular chosen classes.
Except for Derek.
Oh, Derek, the planetologist, he's everywhere.
He's just traveling around.
He's everywhere.
He's a wandering
He's-
mentor.
he's-
You can
he's,
find him anywhere.
Yeah, he's here. He's there.
He's
He's
there.
He's everywhere.
Derek Chenard. Okay, no, enough. Sorry.
No, but you have contracts here, of course, as well,
Yes,
and
contracts,
specific
yeah.
vendors, so they have a lot of things to sell as well.
Yes, and the main story brings you to these locations as well.
Yes. So now we actually get a glimpse at the Overland Map.
Yes,
which
so
is
you
one
can
of
use
the
the
games.
pilots in the trade post to fly to the hubs like we showed, and you use those same pilots to get back. But once you have your own ornithopter, you can just fly to the edge of the Hager Basin map, and you'll get a prompt asking you if you'd like to go to the Overland map. And this is the Overland map.
This
And
is pretty cool
again,
too.
One of the things that I think kind of breaks us away from your standard survival game. This is where we have the ability to infinitely expand this game, where we have multiple maps that players can go to.
This is their quantum travel.
I think this is where you go to reach the deep desert. This is where you go to reach several of the story maps. Right now, we've landed on a fuel deposit. And we're just picking up a bit of fuel, refueling our ornithopter on there. We're able to expand here for a long time, and this is kind of part of what, again, we wanted to do to make this a coherent universe, right? And make Dune feel like something that, you know, we're going to be working on and adding to for a long time.
So post-launch, there will be new locations that show up here.
Yes.
We'll have events that have locations here for short durations, right? For to shake things up, and you know, eventually when we release huge content drops, they'll be accessible through the Overland map.
The Overland map.
Exactly. One other thing that you can find in the Overland map, which also goes into the story, that we really would like to talk a little bit more about, because we haven't as you mentioned, it takes a while to also get the story going, so people during the beta weekend haven't actually seen much of that. So via the Overland map, you can also access some of these story dungeons, and we actually do have some footage of one of those dungeons that await you. And Joel and Scott can probably give a little bit of context what we're seeing.
Part of Act 2.
So here we're not going to spoil too much of the story, but this is kind of the theme of Act 2, right? You've moved from a survivor doing the trials, now you're getting involved in the politics.
Oh, look, the kitten is back.
Yeah, so there's a lot more interaction with NPCs, dialogue, there's a lot more cinematics, and a lot of locations outside the Hager Basin that you'll be going to.
One of my favorite characters too.
Yeah,
I love her. Everyone does.
In the Cone of Silence.
We didn't mention the Cone of Silence, but you're inside the Cone of Silence here, and the game actually dampens all the sound outside of it when you enter, which is pretty cool.
To be distributed in the water supply of this water shipper. The act of
Chormurky for law people who understand.
What is that, by the way? I actually don't know what
The
that
Assassin's
means.
Handbook describes certain poisons. Chormurky is poison in the drink.
That's actually something I didn't know. Like, I was wondering about that earlier. Like, I didn't know what that term is.
So you see we have a dialogue system in the game where you can make choices based on several of the things that you've done in the game as well. Your background at the start has some payoff here.
This water shipper is wealthy.
Again, it's not like, you know, we're not making an Obsidian RPG with all of the choices that something like that has, but we're doing a level of this that's above and beyond what most survival games do, I think.
And you will be interacting with some Dune characters that people
Well, look
are
at her
familiar
last
with.
name. Dune fans probably recognize already that last name.
Yep.
All right, so we're skipping ahead here. We've jumped to the part of the mission where you're heading towards the water shipper's mansion, which is in the Imperial Basin just outside of Arrakeen. The player is being sent there to assassinate and poison this water shipper on behalf of Alara Tuek. And so we come to this new level on the Overland map.
Yeah, so your job is to infiltrate,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, she's talking and explaining the mission, but I can't hear it, so I'm just... But
one of the things we wanted to do is make sure all the abilities still work in these, so it is still very sandboxy.
Yeah.
There will always be multiple approaches. You know, if you have a Shigawire Claw, you can use that to grappling hook over some areas. If not, you know, then you're gonna have to be a little bit more stealthy and avoid the searchlights.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where our philosophy is like we give people all these tools, but it's a sandbox. Play the way you want to play. Like here, it's, you know, we have to find a guy called Yargan, who's her contact. And so like it's like we're quite nice to people. You might get spotted, but you can escape the lights quickly.
Yeah.
That's the one we found here.
You can read the dialogue here. It's fun. One of those ones.
And again, depending on your background, they actually get different choices to to the dialogue.
Character creation is important.
Yeah, it sounds like whichever class you pick as your starting class has an impact on some dialogues. Whichever world you choose as your starting world has an impact on some dialogue. That kind of thing.
Talks about the place.
Which is cool. I'm sure it's not like a whole lot of change, but it's always nice to have a little bit of depth added to, based on the flavor of the character.
Which background do you have to get that option though?
That one's for everyone for free.
It's for everyone. That's for free. Okay, there you go. I love that we have it in a video too.
Yeah.
But there's so many little Easter eggs and fun things that you also wrote, like especially also for like weapon
weapon
descriptions and
descriptions,
things.
item
It's super
descriptions.
fun. Like everything's connected. Like for those of you who do like lore and who know Dune lore as well, you will find a lot of connections. But also for the ones who don't,
Yeah.
it's super fun to just.
He's also
Find
explaining the different ways that you can approach this quest right now. So he's sort of explaining to you, oh, there's like 2 paths that you can take. Like you don't have to go this way, you don't have to go that way. Here's how you can get in, there's how you can get in, right? So as a player, you can approach this, again, in kind of that sandbox approach. It's like, again, I don't want to oversell it. It's not an immersive sim where you have
Yeah,
like the
no.
Dishonored level of,
Yeah.
but you can definitely find alternate paths into the mansion to achieve your mission. And I think that like a shout out to the story content team with Bernard and the boys, as I call them. They've done a great job with these, setting them up. And here's what Scott was talking about, where you know, oh, like I've set the game up in this way. I'm a Bene Gesserit. I'm just going to stun this guy, and then I'll be able to walk past him, and he won't even notice me. He won't call up. He won't call the guards because he doesn't see me, right? And so you can use your abilities, your skills that you've picked up in the game to just pass through these areas, and yeah, it's kind of fun, right? And we just wanted to show that we have more than just, you know, the basic survival game. There's way more going on here.
Yeah, especially like.
Looking forward
I think
to
it
seeing
takes
more of
about-
this.
If you, let's assume you ignore everything else because there's a lot of choices for you how you want to approach Dune Awakening and what there's to do. But let's assume you're only going for the main story and like those cinematics and things. So it takes you. I did talk to Niels about it as well. It takes about 30 hours until the story really gets going.
Yeah, if you're playing by yourself, just
Yes.
experiencing
Yeah.
all the survival elements.
Not 30 hours till it's
adding your
done,
own. Yeah,
until it really gets
30 hours
going.
Part 2.
Yeah, it's. I mean,
That
it's
sounds
deliberately,
promising.
Like, so I'm not defensive about Act 1, but yeah, the first part of the game is deliberately somewhat light, just to give people that, like, learn the world,
Exactly,
acclimatize
yeah.
yourself, like follow up on the Fremen. You have the Fremen trials, and it's super interesting, and then we start introducing and layering the politics of the universe and more and more of
Exactly,
this
yeah.
stuff, and more of your personal story, like what's going on, why are you the one being asked to do this,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
happening, right?
And ultimately, it is a survival game first, right? So
Yes.
the player needs to learn how to survive in Arrakis, right? And it's a very harsh environment. There's a lot of mechanics to figure out, and then you have to make your way through there and figure out how to get outside of the Haga Basin, right, before you can experience more of the politics and intrigue that are going on.
Exactly, and I really love that we have. I mean, the beginning of the game is kind of story driven, right? You get
Yeah.
context to what,
Yeah.
where you, well, a little bit of context what's actually happening. You have a person that talks to you and helps you at the beginning, and then, as you mentioned, it goes more into learning the actual mechanics and the tutorialization of the game. And we give you time to get a bit acquainted with everything, or not everything, but a lot of the things, like the basic mechanics, and then we like approach you again with the story a bit later on. And I really love that too.
I love this guy, but we're cutting now because we're not going to spoil too much of what's going on.
No, exactly. So obviously we don't want to show too much. There's more to this dungeon. What we're going to do now, though, is we're actually going to watch another video that's going to lead us into our next segment. So enjoy.
Cool.
Intense.
Power. Given the right lever, you can move a planet. In Dune Awakening, your path to power leads you through the great houses. But only accomplished guilds may earn their place among the Atreides or Harkonnen. Swear your allegiance and contribute to their rise in desert power. The pledge is only the beginning. You have come far, and now it's time to take control of the Landsraad. The Landsraad
I know
is the
nothing
council of great
about how
houses
this
that
is
make
going to work in the
decisions
game, but it
that
sounds very
impact
interesting.
all the players on all the servers in your world. Your goal, and that of your guild, is to secure their votes so that your faction, the Harkonnen or Atreides, can take control. To secure their votes and sway them to your side, you must complete specific house requirements on the Landsraad board. Alone or together with your guild, your efforts can move the needle. Be the first to fulfill a house requirement to not only secure their vote, but also reap their many rewards.
I like the sound of it. It seems elegantly simple.
PvE or PvP, there are many paths to victory. If you prefer the relative safety of the shield wall, there are many activities that will not put you into direct conflict with other players, while still contributing to your faction's rise to power. House Torvald wants you to eliminate sandflies. Rush in, or pick off the deserters one by one with your sniper rifle. House Rashis wants a delivery of ground cars. Join up with friends and build strongholds for large-scale production and deliver them safely to the House representative by ground or air. Large-scale production is costly and will require a lot of resources. To be able to craft certain high-tier items, you will also need the most sought-after resource of all.
Spice.
Spice. You can buy spice from spice merchants or on the player-run exchange. And it can even be found in smaller pockets behind the shield wall. But
they were not using the sand compactor there, which would have allowed them to harvest that much more quickly.
Into the unknown. The deep desert beckons. Here, violent Coriolis storms sweep across the vast expanse of sand, resetting the map every week, revealing new resources to mine and points of interests to explore. This ever-changing environment offers endless exploration, but also endless conflict. Each house in the Landsraad desires a specific control point in the deep desert. Seize it and hold it over time to gain their vote.
Loki.
Fortify it and be ready for a fight. Other players will soon come to take it from you. The deep desert is also home to frequent Spiceblows, offering large quantities of the precious melange. You need a lot of spice. Once you've located a Spiceblow, move your harvesters in place to collect. Just be ready to defend it with your life.
There's a big worm. That's definitely a big one.
After a week of politics, manufacturing, and conflict, one side emerges victoriously. The Harkonnen have seized the Landsraad, and the leaders of the player guilds who contributed to their victory all get to vote for a decree that will impact everyone on a server belonging to that world. They choose to unlock exclusive weapon imports rights. By decree of the Landsraad Council, under the seal of His Imperial Majesty, a trade consortium has been authorized to visit Arrakeen, providing Harkonnen players with exclusive access to a unique weapons vendor in Harko Village.
It'd be cool to see how relevant
As the Harkonnen
those perks
Landsraad
become
term
over
begins,
time.
The race for control in the next term.
What happened? What happened? It's got to be their end, right? Yeah, everything for me still looks fine. What happened? Something fell down, go boom.
Welcome back. No technical problems at all. It's all fine. No one would have noticed if you didn't say anything, Scott.
Sorry.
There's something wrong with this computer.
Pretty sure I couldn't hear it, but I'm pretty sure it cut off mid-VO.
It probably did. Yes, I couldn't hear it either. But the video is going to be available after the stream anyway, so you can watch it in all its glory. Landsraad. Talking about Landsraad, so let's go to the next segment. Endgame and Landsraad. So we know people have, of course, expectations of what the Endgame and Landsraad, and especially Deep Desert, looks like, and what it's for, and how people will use the Deep Desert, and how it works. A lot of those things. But I think before we go into more details and show some really exciting gameplay as well, Joel, I think it'd be cool to talk about the vision for what the Endgame is supposed to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like, going back to when I joined the project, like, so this is 5 years ago, right? And we were talking about what is a good survival game, like, because Dune, we were making a Dune survival game, and we were talking about what is the vision for an end game in Dune, and the kind of the goal and the idea, at least in the beginning, was like we started with, hey, like, you start by surviving in the desert, and it's that raw nature versus mankind kind of thing. It's the sun, it's the sandworms, it's the storms, but then you move into this new mode of survival, which is political survival, which is the end game of the game needs to be about these big forces, right? The Imperium is made up of the great houses, the Landsraad, the Emperor, the Spacing Guild, Chome. All of these things have an influence, and you as a player are just a small cog in the machine, but we want you to be able to feel like you're participating in this big umbrella system. And so we started there. And then we talked about, like, there's an element of, like, I think very technical game design here where we talk about player activity cycles through the week. I was looking at, like, games like Rust. Rust has their server resets, which is great for, like, people to start building up, and people really enjoy that cycle. But a lot of people also love having their stuff and not losing it. And so we talked about, like, okay, what about a place, and in Dune it's perfect, right? You have these Coriolis storms, and there's scenes in the book where the sand is just tearing apart cliff faces and ripping down the things in the desert and revealing things from beneath the sand. And so we said, okay, what if we had a map, the deep desert, and in the deep desert, the landscape changes every week. How does that affect gameplay? And then we started.
I think this was actually a really smart choice.
What about if there's a cycle of events that we want players to go through? And again, this is a design. This is a high-level design.
We might actually have an infographic or a visual asset for that. A week cycle of.
Oh, do we?
Yep.
Cool. Fun. You guys are on top of things. I know nothing.
No,
Oh
not that
no!
one.
Sorry,
Not
that's
this one.
not that one. But okay. Either way, I can
Maybe
just
it's
keep,
not right. Maybe
I
we
can just-
didn't. Make
I
it
can
in
just
time.
keep talking.
Yeah.
Just
Go
keep
for it.
talking. It's fine.
Go for
Sorry,
it.
everyone. I know it's just
Go for
boring
it.
old Joel. But like we wanted to approach this right. So we were like, okay, what if there's a map that resets and the map changes every week, so that it's an infinitely explorable space? And we worked backwards from there, and we said, how do we build a lot of our game systems towards this? So we started with the idea of, yes, the map resets. When would we want to reset the map? Let's say we reset it on the lowest player activity day of the week, right? Which tends to be a Tuesday night or a Wednesday in these kind of online games. And then we're like, okay,
Tuesday's
and then
the
there's this
day,
activity
right?
we call scouting and cartography. And then we built a game mechanic around cartography and scouting, which I think we're going to show in a little bit. And that is, and maybe you saw it, we definitely tutorialized it in the beta, you reveal parts of the map. And then we made it so that you can save those maps and sell them to other players. So we create a loop there for players who are scouts, and that happens, let's say, in a player activity week, it happens during the low ebb. The deep desert gets revealed. Everybody needs information. How do we make information a commodity? We create a cartography and a scouting system. Then once that information is gathered,
Pay attention,
people share it with their
CIG.
friends and their guilds. Then they start setting up what we call a logistics plan. How am I going to control the spaces in the deep desert that I want to control? What is my guild looking for? Are we looking for spice? Are we looking for unique schematics? Are we going after shipwrecks? Are we going after the ecology labs that have been revealed? Like, what are we doing this week? So then they go set up. And then
Exactly,
the
Camille.
weekend, which is when the highest player activity count is, that's when people are online. And that's where people really participate in the activities in the deep desert, whether that is running ecology labs with their friends or shipwrecks or fighting over like control points in the deep desert. And then after the weekend, I should say, on top of this as an umbrella is the Landsraad. And the Landsraad are asking you to do activities that take place both in the deep desert, but also outside of the deep desert.
Exactly.
There's a lot of PvE stuff in there. And then at the end of that activity cycle, everybody votes. It sets a server-wide change, like a worldwide, I think we should say in our terminology. It changes every rule set in the world can be changed by the Landsraad. And then the Coriolis Storm happens again on a Tuesday, and we start over again with a new weekly cycle. And this is kind of the vision and dream for how the end game
I think that's a really smart move.
Like it to work. And yeah, I mean, we'll talk about how that we've set everything.
A really good
up
way
for
to
this
have your
be
cake and eat it too,
but of course,
right?
no plan survives.
You have
first
your
contact with
long-term
players. So another
accomplishments
point I would like to make is
in-
just
you know,
in
the safe area.
and update these things. So
And then this constant refresh every week in the PvP area, so that
some activities
people will
that
obviously be
you
able to
might
set
be
up
wanting
better
to do.
for the coming
So we have,
week.
like, actually a team here that
But they have to rebuild everything in that area. I think that's going to be, there's a lot of potential
We've gone to the
there.
Overland Map,
Yeah, we're
and
in the shield wall.
we're in
now.
the shield wall, which is the southern part of the deep desert.
it's the PvE area.
Correct,
so to speak.
yeah.
This
So
is the PvE
it was-
space.
It was important for us so that people that are scared of PvP or reluctant to get engaged with it, right, that they had a place in the deep desert that they could go to without.
It will depend on how relevant the content stays over time, because that's New World's biggest foible.
Gate camping or
Is very little content stays relevant
this is
there, because
also
there's
where you
not
set
enough
up
stuff to do.
your base of operations.
Yes.
The very first area, because the deep desert is gigantic. There's no water here,
Yes.
and you need to have the logistics set up. And
Yep.
you know, like you can go there by yourself. Like I fly there on beta. I try to stay away from people.
And they're using the
As we said,
blueprint
I'm not great
system
at
here.
PvP necessarily.
People call it ratting.
Probably from the last time they built this
Oh, I'm
base.
totally
Rat
right.
raid.
Absolutely.
So they don't have to
Just point
rebuild
out
it
one thing
completely
here,
from scratch.
'cause
They
these
have a
guys-
plan.
So again, coming back to like how do we
Pop
get
the
towards this
blueprint,
vision? We
build it
started
back
with,
up the beginning of
how do
that
you build
week.
you know this is going to get wiped every week. How do we encourage people to build bases? Well, first of all, we created this blueprinting system. You bring the diagram of your base, you place it out, and you build it quickly, right? This is very fast. It doesn't take very long when you're with a few friends. You get a base put down, you build it up quickly. This is part of the logistics cycle of the deep desert.
And you can either
You can
bring
sell
the
those
resources
blueprints.
from Haga Basin and all the vehicles that you're bringing with you.
You can sell
or
these
you can
blueprints
harvest
on the
and
player
there's quite a bit of resources
trading
in the
post.
shield wall,
Yep.
so you can set this up.
Right? Yes, this is going to
This
be
is-
so
this is
good.
what's happening here. We're building a forwarding base.
And when you're at the auction house, you can apparently look at the blueprint and get a 3D view of what that base looks like.
Like the actual home base.
I think that's potentially going to be big
Because
business.
This is all about efficiency, right?
Yes.
And like fitting your the storages and all the machines that you need. Now my brain just stopped working. Fabricators. Thank you.
Yeah, and we made a change, or not a change. It's just the building costs are different in the deep desert, so it costs half as much to build
Yes.
everywhere.
Building
and you
is
get 100%
faster,
when
yep.
you're breaking things down. Just because we know you're going to be.
Yes, you could be an architect.
There's going to be some loss, right? So we're trying to make it easy and accessible in the ways that we can, while still keeping the threat there.
Yes.
I mean, I have not played Conan, but I've seen some of the build videos of people that build their bases in Conan, right? This is going to be like that too, right? Except sci-fi. I think it's going to be super impressive.
Their primary weekly base in the PvE area, and then maybe set out some logistics bases so that they can do things like refining spice. And that's where it becomes an interesting kind of we'll see how people play out these scenarios in the actual deep desert in the game, but this is kind of the expected behavior. This is what we hope people will do. And we've tried to build all the mechanics into
And
place
once
so
you
that
start
people can
building
do
the
this.
building, you can give
Right,
people
and that's been a
permission
large
to
part of
work on it with you, right? So you could have 10 people pulling this building up all at once.
And that's
if you set the permissions right.
as well. It is a multiplayer game.
So
it's really important.
I think
to
this
make
is
sure that people
really
can
well
play
thought
together
out.
and do things together. And I think the fun part in this game and this style of game is that it extends
See,
beyond.
there's somebody building that balcony
the
or whatever
traditional
over
MMO
there.
Experience of we can fight things together. right? And we can
In
role
the
play
deep
together,
desert,
but, you're not
base
building things
raids
together,
are
you're
a
crafting
thing.
vehicles together, right?
So yes, they can be destroyed. I don't know the details. I know shields are a thing. I don't know what you have to do to take down the shields first.
Utilitarian.
But this
right?
is specifically in the deep desert PvP area.
Yeah, it's quite impressive.
Outside of the deep
People are
desert,
also wondering that you
no,
won't be able
they cannot
to,
destroy your base.
Copy that your setup inside. So this is literally the blueprint is for the building itself. So everything.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah. You still have to put the placeables in.
So we're behind the shield wall. I think we've just left the base now,
Yeah, we're actually
and we're
just showing a little.
I kind of hope they're going to talk about that.
Area here
so this is behind
In
the shield
this
wall, and then
section.
you come out into the deep desert, and this is like I think. Oh yeah, sorry. Behind the shield wall, there's also PVE elements here. This is the PVE space.
Yeah.
So there are things like shipwrecks that you can.
I was going
raid.
to say, that looks
There
like a
are,
shipwreck.
Eco labs behind here. So there is a section of the deep desert. I know people are really worried about doing PvP.
If you don't want
There's
a
a whole
PvP.
section here. It's 24 kilometers long, where you can actually go and do the PvE part. And we're about to see. Well, this will take a few seconds.
We're actually
survey
We're in the middle of the
just
survey.
surveying
So now we're surveying the land in this section, and we'll see the segment reveal itself.
I don't know.
And this is like one of the PvE segments.
Because you have to survey an area or visit it
one square
to be able to see
Just to
it.
give
In
some
a
context,
way,
that's
there's
one
kind
of
of a built-in
81
fog of war stealth.
squares within this map. So there are
Your
81
base
of these
isn't
squares.
announced. You have to be there
Actually
to
also
see
seeing
it,
the sync chart that
or you
mentioned
have to.
earlier
It has to be
as well.
revealed through a
Something to
survey.
say.
So now, I don't know
So-
whose name it is, but whichever player it is crafting a...
You can build
they
in
have
all kinds of
survey.
different
Now
ways,
they're
though.
going
Like,
to
if you could
craft
find a nook
sync
or a
chart.
cranny
They have
that's
crafted
very
a sync
hard to
chart of the
visually
deep
see,
desert. It tells you,
you
in
could
the
build a base
information
there.
which sector of the deep desert, who created it, how long ago it was created, so you understand whether the information's out of date or in date. They're going to share that sync chart with their friends.
Yep.
And then their friends, hopefully, will be able to switch camera perspective and see their friend apply the sync chart,
is
which
the
saves
plan.
them having to
Yes.
explore.
Yeah,
so this is
exactly.
that cartography loop.
You could go out with like a really
Again,
quick
exploration
helicopter.
gameplay, CIG, pay
That's the
attention.
deep desert over there.
Oh, sure.
To the left.
But you can go out with like an exploration kit, right? That's
Yeah.
really fast. That
Yes.
You can go around. You don't have much harvesting abilities, right? And then
Yeah.
you scout the area, bring it back, and then your base can roll out with your transport ornithopters, your harvesters,
Exactly.
sand crawlers.
Depending what your plan is for the day.
What
Which
people-
doesn't
what
necessarily
people
have to be PvP. There's actually a lot of other things,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
might bring you to
I
the
expect
deep
people
desert.
in guilds to be figuring things out and how they're going to work together to do these things. But there's roles here, right? Like again, we tried to really build this game with different roles for different people within guilds.
Exactly.
So the idea is, maybe I'm just the scout, and that's what I do because I hate, going into fights. But I go out, I bring back the information. Then people who like building bases are planning like what our logistics are going to be and what we're going to be doing this week in the deep desert. What do we need to harvest? What do we need for our crafting? Are there uniques that we're looking for? Are there specific uniques? I think one of the really important points about the deep desert is that like the unique schematics, the Imperial permits, which maybe people saw, the purple ones, they're on a
It's interesting
limited
how much of this
setup.
game,
So
it's a
you don't get the
completely
same ones
different
every week,
scope.
and the layouts of the
You
deep desert
can
change.
compare to
Here
the
we see the trading
promise of
system.
Star Citizen.
The sync chart's been traded.
And those schematics you can only make. a
No,
certain
you
amount of
can
times.
now
design a base hollow like that
We're going
with
to
the
consume the sync chart.
projections, and you can save
we're
that
going to
blueprint.
open our
You
map and
don't
see that
actually
the
have to
sector
spend
has
any
been played the same
resources
sector.
to actually build a single
So
floor.
this is kind of cool. You can create copies of this and pass it off.
So
to your
you
guild.
could just
can
all
create
day
copies
long
and
just
sell them
design
in exchange
buildings,
for other players as
save a blueprint,
Yes, and
tear it
while,
down,
now
back
we're
it up
actually
and-
building a transport ornithopter. We can
Some
actually
people will
quickly talk
absolutely
about
do that.
Storm in combination with the map because we actually have a visual asset here
Yeah.
that shows how they can look like. On
Yeah,
the
so
map.
we can talk about the rotation. So this is
Yes.
like
The building is a big
let's see
part
that
of
we're
what
going
I'm
to see
excited
3
about
weeks of
because
Storm
I haven't had a real way to
changes
scratch
to
my
the map.
building
So
itch in a
this is
while. I did
week 1.
content creation
And then
with
we
Second
move
Life
to- and you can see that
for
there's, like,
17
one
years,
eco-lab, a
right,
shipwreck,
where I
a
build my
cave,
meshes
and a small
and
base,
do
and some
my own
spice
kind of building
blocks
stuff
that have been
there.
marked. And then to the
Right.
next
I'm
week,
done with that. That's
the
in the
layout
past
has
for me.
changed.
So
Where
having
things are
this to be
different.
able to
There's a
do
control
building,
point
I'm very
now
excited
in the
about.
Bottom left, there's an eco
Like
lab
a
at a
Riddler
different
for
place, a
Fortnite.
shipwreck that's been uncovered.
And there will be different loot and different
Different
schematics
loot
that
in
you
all
get.
of them. And then we go one more week again. And now you can see that this is a bit larger. There's another control point. It's a different house control point now. Different spaces on
So
the map.
this is
A couple
map
of eco labs
resets.
this time. 4 or 5 caves and the shipwreck. So you can sort of see how this changes and how this loot encourages
That's
exploration
cool.
for people each week.
Yes,
And that's
encourage
one
exploration. Imagine.
That's one section.
One of
81st.
One of 81.
Yeah.
But I will say
we go.
this: it's a very big desert with a lot of space.
Yes.
So there's not all the tiles are that populated each week. So people aren't like, oh, there's not 15 eco labs in every square, right?
No.
Like
Yes.
it's a
more
big
sparse.
barren place. And this is also like important because if we want people to fight over things, we actually need to draw them to the same places to fight
Yes.
over specific things in PvP.
Yes. So for
Alright.
the ones who actually do want the PvP, they have a place to go where they know there's probably other players there as well.
Okay, so now we have a transport ornithopter. This is the largest flying vehicle that you can craft in the game. And this may be my favorite game mechanic because the transport
I agree.
ornithopter can pick things up. And I love it because it can pick up almost anything that is a vehicle,
Yes.
right, in the game. So
One of the things you'll see in the mid game is like the buggy is really hard to get to places, right? Even though it mines so
Yes.
much more than you can ever possibly mine yourself. But it's a pain, right, to get up on the shield wall or to get it out here.
So a good tactic with the buggy though is to use it as storage and use the transport
Yes,
ornithopter to pick
yeah.
it up and carry it. Are we going to show an example of carrying? I guess we are.
Yes, we
Yeah,
are,
cool.
because
Yes.
what we're actually preparing for here is...
See, this is
a
making me wonder
spice
about,
harvesting.
you know,
Ah,
in
so
the
the team's
book,
going out to
the
Yes.
spice
So
harvesters
we're
and the
actually
carry-all. This sounds kind of like a smaller version of
So
that.
now we're coming out into what I call the real deep desert, right? This is actually what you think of when you think of Arrakeen from the movies, right? So this is yeah, we just got the nice tutorial pop up talking about the deep desert.
Yes.
So this is the
perfect
Arrakeen that we know from the films. So Hagar Basin is like and it's taking a lot of the information that we have from the books and about like the different biomes and things and making it into a truly sort of interesting PvE experience. But this is the true deep
That's a
desert of Arrakeen.
Spiceblow.
This is the place where
The purple
people
cloud
are
there.
scared to go. This is where the Fremen live. We're passing outside the shield wall now. This is where the War of Assassins and the PvP is allowed to
And a
happen.
spice blow.
And you can see a spice blow in the distance, which draws people from
Exactly.
miles around to go there, right?
Like I said, I think that's a really
I do wanna say,
creative,
this
clever
section
way
here, if you
to apply
turn
the
camera right and
lore.
left, you can see that we have the shield wall. It goes. This is 24 kilometers long, and you can't see people all the way along. So people who are like nervous about going into the deep desert because they're worried about the PvPers, I think there's like an element from my end, a designed moment that we've talked about on this project quite often is like you come to the edge of this vast ocean and you
This is
tiptoe
kind of
underwater.
like
You're a little bit
Star
scared of
Citizen,
sharks, but you
space
see
is
something in the
big.
distance and you think I can make it, I can get there and I can get back, and the first time it's scary and you
and-
feel that tension, and the second time and the third time, but you feel that tension but you actually start doing it, right? And I get that people worry about toxic behaviors and ganking and so forth, but we tried to build a space where you
So
can
this is a
get away
control
from
point.
people as well.
Correct, yeah. So I think that's really important to talk about is
Yes.
in Dune you were given the tools.
Which feels a lot like cleaning a
Like, if
keep
overwhelming
in New
amounts of
World
people
right
come
now, I
after
won't
you,
lie.
Maybe you can't quite get away, but that's generally not going to happen. So a lot of it is more about PvP is about controlling a point and like having to give up that point if you don't
Yes.
feel like
Fighting,
fighting.
Yeah.
fighting over things
Fighting
instead of kicking
over-
down
yes,
sandcastles.
exactly.
So on the Landsraad here, this is kind of interesting, right? So you can see the Landsraad's in the state of like, if we claim this as the Atreides, we're going to win what we call a Sisselrad, and a Sisselrad means that we're going to get the voting power for the week. So a Sisselrad is when we can complete a row. So normally, if you were Harkonnen and Atreides in this situation, you'd both be fighting over this particular control point because you really don't want the other one to win for the week. But normally, like it's kind of you're always blocking each other and causing like the other team to have to, go back and focus on filling out a row or trying to fill out as many squares as possible. So we're trying to take the
House Haggle?
House Haggle owns this.
I'm very
control point
interested
in
to
the
see how
desert.
this plays
We're
out,
in the
because
deep
this
desert as
is
Atreides taking over this.
is kind of
control point
new
on their behalf, and you can see it's
for
just
games
this,
that I've played. Right, it's a much
control
more
point. It's a
higher
place that you have to
level
defend in the deep desert. It'll draw other people.
process.
And it will
I
only
can't
point
find the
at a
words
time.
that I
It's a
want to use,
classic
but
control point in the deep
I mean,
desert.
it's literally a
One other
control
thing,
system.
If you
but
stop for a second here,
the goals
one other thing I just want
there,
to point out, one of the feedbacks we had
very
in beta was
interesting.
about team markers.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you can see our new team marker system in the game here. It's deliberately only for the 4-person groups. I will not allow this to be in the game for guilds because I want, like, especially I know people talk about Zergs. I think when Zerg guilds and there's 40 people attacking each other on the screen, if everybody can see who's in their guild, it's very easy to target the people that you're trying to Zerg. But if it's just the group, then it's much more difficult for Zergs to actually not do friendly fire.
Because friendly fire is a thing.
Fire on guilds.
I mean, they can do it if they work for
Okay.
it, right? They can make sure
Yeah,
everyone
right.
has the same swatches and the
Yeah,
same
sure.
armor.
That's-
So there is
But
ways to
somebody
do
could
it, but
figure out
they have
what
to
you're
work.
dressed like and infiltrate. right?
Exactly.
Quickly switch to
Yeah,
your-
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's
We didn't want to take
no
away.
artificial.
Yeah, it's been one of my. Let's say I will say this is one of those things where I have had to fight with a lot of developers.
I
on this
haven't
project.
watched very many of these videos, but I like Joel a lot right now.
Also go loot that. But it's giving too much information for free to players actually limits our ability for people to have politics and intrigue.
Yeah.
Because if I can see your name over your head, I know who you are. Right? But if I don't know who that is, and you dress in my clothing and you walk into my base and you follow me around, it's I might just think that you're my friend from the guild, when in fact you're just trying to infiltrate. And we want to allow that possibility because that is Dune. At its core, that is how things work. There are plans within plans, there are groups within groups.
I remember that from early on, where your kind of law was information has to be
Oh
earned.
yeah, for sure.
That was a very early thing.
Can I just point out that we just
Very
crossed
cool.
a server border?
Yeah.
Like our game has server meshing tech in the deep desert, and it's a very
Madness.
very painful technical thing to get working.
Yes.
But we just crossed a server border. You probably might not have even noticed any sort of hitching or anything because it's
The
very
only thing I
seamless.
noticed was that it
Again, shout
updated
out
the
to our technical
PvP
team
pop-up
who
thing
got
again
the
and said you are in a
to get
PvP
this in
area.
good shape. But we just crossed a server border from one server to another, and it's basically not visible, which is great.
Yeah, what we call authority transfer.
That's awesome,
Transfer
man.
Between servers, yeah.
Sounds
So now we're picking
familiar.
up a random sandcrawler and bringing it out to the spice harvesting field. So, I mean, I love that. I love that mechanic. I think it's fantastic fun in the game, just picking things up.
The transport ornithopter is quite slow.
Yeah, it's very slow.
And they didn't need
These
13
games
years
should
for
go
it. That's
out
right.
just
They
in the
didn't.
Transport ornithopter.
And you can of course sit in the harvester
Yes.
while being
Sure, you can,
transported,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is really
So
fun too.
You can also,
Yes.
I think the transport
You can-
has 5 seats as well. So
Yes,
there's,
yeah.
you can bring a whole little group with you.
Or have them standing on
kidnap
top.
other
Yeah.
enemy harvesters as well, which is also super fun.
Really?
But we should talk
Oh,
about
that
spice,
sounds
because that's
awesome.
really
Somebody else gathers the spice and you swoop in and steal their harvester and fly away with
Tier
it.
6 or the last set of resources, right? Everything requires spice to craft it. So your end-game gear, your in-game tools.
Okay, now this is in the desert, though.
Everything.
I
Yeah,
wonder how
everything
long
in
it
game
takes
requires
for a
spice
worm to
crafting,
show up.
Essentially. And also, we mentioned the Landsraad. The Landsraad has always the center square of the Landsraad requires spice to win. It's important. The Sandcrawler is it's not the full harvesters that you've seen in the films. Those are owned by the big houses. But as you can see here,
Yeah.
this is a little raid event. We just placed a thumper on the sand. We have a guy on a bike. He's
Exactly.
riding around dropping thumpers.
You should also hear
Oh,
it actually
God.
too. Now you hear
Yeah.
The thumpers are really important because sandworms roam the deep desert. They will be coming, and you need to be placing out thumpers to distract them away from that sandcrawler while it's harvesting spice. And you want to keep it on the spice as long as possible, just like in the book.
Yeah.
You want to stay on the spice
Hey, what's up,
and earn as
Axo?
much profit as you possibly can. You can even see the trail that the sandcrawler is leaving.
That's
in
cool.
The spice as it sucks
That's
up
cool.
spice
The
into its
trail. I
vacuum.
love it.
Yeah. So the sandworm stops being, it not stops, but it's less of a threat as you're going throughout Holiday Days.
They seemed pretty good to me so far.
The end game, right?
Right? I did spend a fair amount of time rocketing along on my frickin' sand bike
Spice from
at 70 or 80
Yeah, so
kilometers
you
per
saw the
hour
sandworm
there at
just
the end
took
of
that
the.
thumper. Hopefully
beta
our
period.
intrepid thumper places have put out more.
They were pretty good.
They're totally well organized. They have several people placing out thumpers.
Yeah.
They have the scouts here in the air that we see as well, which is really cool to see.
Looking for worms.
Plus our transport to be ready for any kind
Yeah,
of danger that
and-
might occur.
And so as soon as the sandcrawler, the person driving the sandcrawler knows that they're the target of the sandworm, they need to radio in and be like, get me off the sand, so that the transport ornithopter will pick them up. But at the moment, I think we're using the
I think it'll
thumpers
be very
effectively as a
basic,
team.
but I
And
think
this is
it'll be
part of it,
fun.
right? This is why the deep desert is very Dune. I don't think you have this experience in any other game. And the idea was to create this. So if you are here with your guild, there's something to do and it's fun and it's interesting. But then other players might show up as well, and that's where it becomes another step, right?
So you're saying it's not just reskinned Conan Exiles? Is that what you're saying, Joel?
We could talk about what the word reskin means. We could talk about, like, you know, that some of the best games in the world are reskins of other games.
So you see here, though, that there is a lot of sandworms that are popping up
Yeah.
here constantly,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
both fantasy but also terrifying.
There is a limit to how much they.
You switch to vulture mode and you do the
They
glide
get
and
annoyed.
pick up
Eventually,
altitude
I'm
and
not that
lower
dumb,
drop
right?
altitude to pick up speed.
I see-
It sounds
I see
interesting.
what you-
I mean,
I see
the
what you're doing here.
ornithopters do have some rockets on them for lateral acceleration, but I don't know how
Yeah,
long
this
you
is like,
you can run
You also
those.
see nicely the scouts around to
Yeah.
see, like, also potentially
It's
looking
mouse
out
and
for
keyboard
sensors.
driven, right?
Yeah,
So I'm not
sensors.
expecting
So
fancy in the way of
they're kind
flight.
devastating in
You know,
this
I'll hold
particular
W and then I'll hit Q or E to do a barrel roll
enemies
probably and
coming in as
and
well.
whatever.
Enemies
But
coming in. Yeah. So yeah, it's this is kind of the experience.
now,
of,
we
like,
did see
harvesting
rocket
spice.
launchers on, I think, on one of the
And
ornithopters.
there
So
are
I do
smaller
wonder about
spice
air-to-air
blows
combat,
that
but
you can come to
Yeah.
with a
I guess we'll see.
smaller guild.
We also have them in Haga Basin, of course.
Yes,
just way
there's
smaller
there's
than
just a
this one.
couple ones in Haga.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very limited because we wanted spice to be a rare resource that you need to go out here into the deep desert to
And,
get.
and talking about like concentration of people, like the Spiceblow you can see from really far away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
20 plus kilometers
Yes.
away. So you do need to bring some friends to be looking out for other people coming in.
Yep.
There's another thumper down there. So I know we've seen some comments.
I'm
from
waiting on
people
a
like,
worm to
well,
come
you
up and chomp
have
this
to go into
ornithopter.
the deep desert to get like the highest type of gear and such. What
That
do
is
we?
not true. We have the exchange. We just showed that before, right? So you can be somebody that is making something that a person on the exchange would want, right? That goes into the
Wow,
deep desert,
visibility
gets
is definitely a
spice,
thing
or,
in the
you know, sells
Spiceblow.
schematics. They can go to Arrakeen or Hargo Village, post that,
Yeah.
and then you can trade it on.
Well, I mean, the Unreal Engine has been a fantastic
Picking up
tool,
I
a
think
development
there might have
tool
been
for a
some-
long time.
we can't hear it though, but there might have been some rumblings and some indication that
And each iteration, it just gets better and better.
We I think that they
Some
got worm sign
big
and they need to
threads
move.
is
Yeah, we
potentially
do have a
coming.
known bug in the game where the spice color disappears from the sand.
It's still there. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's happening. Oh,
There he is.
That's
the
why
big
they-
worm.
Yeah,
There's the
we can
grandfather
actually hear
worm.
that. Yeah,
that's shy.
It's great seeing the little sandworm.
Yeah, the
right
little
by the
tiny
big
one on
one.
the side. You can see the scale.
little baby like getting into the action there,
This is the ringmouth worm.
That's the ring mouth. Yeah.
and that's gonna swallow everything.
So that consumes everything
They're, like,
from the
just everything there is
Spiceblow.
lost,
It
and it's
takes
just
the
like
lot.
I wondered if
These
it would
guys
get it
manage
all.
to succeed, and they can take their haul out of the deep desert. Stay with them.
Very well prepared.
Yeah.
They were well prepared.
Very well prepared. So as our crew here is now going back to, actually maybe we can explore a little bit because we do actually have Imperial testing stations here as well, and I think we're actually somewhat close to one if I remember correctly.
And the testing stations are kind of like their little mini
Again,
dungeons.
to just bring it in that there is a lot of content in the deep desert that is not just like flat out PvP, right? So we really
Yeah.
want to
Correct. And this is our high-end PvE encounters happen in the deep desert. So the eco labs or ecological testing stations,
Yeah. Oh,
they're
yeah.
actually tuned
Apologies.
for 4 players. Yeah. So it's the main PvE challenge would be out here where you're going to get those unique schematics that we were talking about earlier. But you need to scout, you need to find them, and then you need to perhaps fight over them.
And work as a team. I think these are.
I'm curious to see if it changes the
4 people.
Yeah.
law of Canley.
We actually showed one in our
Status
comment
if we
stream.
get close to
Yeah.
one.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
that
They're
would
like
prevent the
kind of
PvP or not.
waste-based, kind of very different approach than the Imperial testing stations that we have in Haga Basin.
Yeah, and they're
Yeah,
different
that's-
every week.
It's the entrance
Yes.
to Colony Station. And you know, like as the game continues, as we go through live and we continue to update and expand, there'll be more things that show up on the map, for example, Fremen Seaches and things like that, that people
No,
expect
there's a
to
control
explore. So
point right
things will be
there.
uncovered.
Right
And
outside that
as I mentioned,
station.
like the layouts for the deep desert, they're handcrafted. We have a cool system where we like build the layouts by hand and generate the spaces between them with the sand. So it's kind of like we fill in the gaps with the sand. But like we are building new layouts for this all the time, right? And then over time we'll incorporate more and more elements. So there'll be always something.
I love
to do.
it.
That's the pillar of the game, infinite exploration, right?
Yes.
And that's one of the goals is to create a space that's always explorable. And something else I'd like to say that I think is like important is we will add, like we have the DLCs and things coming for the game. We'll be adding things in the DLCs, but the deep desert will always remain something that we consider to be at the zenith of the power curve in the game. So we'll keep adding to the deep desert. So let's say that we have tier 5.
I think the spice is always going to be important.
Then the deep desert will start to have tier 7.
And it's the only place you can get it, right?
In it as well. We will always try to keep it on par with anything else we add in terms of power, because the deep desert really is that continually explorable space.
The central point that keeps all of the things
and
together.
we'll continue to add like stuff, and there will be like in DLCs there'll be places where people can get access to gear that is currently in the deep desert, right? When we do that, we'll also increase the deep desert and make sure that there's more things. So that's kind of the long-term goal, is to continue updating.
Seems like there's a lot of forethought, which is promising.
Yeah, to also intro players about that. So while we actually have our team, or actually the spice harvesters, go back to on the way to the Quartermaster to deploy, or like to kind of
Harvest the spice. Yeah.
give him the spice, basically. Yeah, give him the spice for the Landsraad thing.
Refine.
We do have an additional asset. We have actually a video from a stress test that we did with the beta last week on Friday, where we see a lot of things happening.
Shout out to the beta players.
Yes, thank you, beta players. Fantastic work on that side.
I spent
as well.
27 hours in that
that's
weekend.
actually
It was a lot of fun.
the
I
stress
enjoyed
test
the hell
that
out
we
of
did.
it,
That's also
as
deep
I keep
desert.
saying.
Lots of people together in the deep desert, lots of ornithopters, and it's just really
All
cool
in
to
line
have like
to
that.
get their ornithopters.
Oh, well, this might be a closed
Yeah,
beta
we were
weekend. This
spawning
might be
that.
something
They were spawning
separate,
helicopters
because
like
that's
crazy.
deep desert. We didn't have that in the open
flamethrowing.
test.
Throwing bombs. Players never behave when you put them in the same space.
If I remember, that's actually Camille with the
That's for
flamethrower.
damn sure.
No, not Camille, sorry, Ignacy. I mean, that was Ignacy.
The context
like
of the
an
stress
old-
test, by the way, was like we were testing people crossing the server boundaries with our mesh servers and fighting
little
on them.
ornithopter back there.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's like, this is sorry, go ahead.
And fighting along the server boundaries just to see how the performance was. So you'll see people firing rockets, and yeah, it was a cool test. I think we got a lot of very useful data out of this.
Yep.
And seeing how people were fighting together.
Also, shout out to our.
There's some air-to-air combat.
Because every build, right? We have the deep desert, and they have basically they deploy our automation system called Legion, and it goes and it tests all of these things, right? So it's got hundreds of ornithopters going back and forth between all the
all the server
zone
boundaries. Yep, there's a lot of testing that goes into a project like this. It's
Yes,
insane.
yes,
And the more sandboxy you get, the more things can break, and that's kind of what
Obviously,
makes it
the more
interesting.
freedom we also give to players,
Yeah,
the more
exactly.
things
Yeah,
can break.
exactly.
And like, I
Yeah.
think I said that to you earlier as well, that like, story-driven games that are linear and you follow one story are one thing. We do have that aspect in the game as well, but I think what we at Funcom really love to do is we love to create worlds where players can write their own stories and can tell their own stories, right? I think that's such a different approach to
Not teleporting
Yeah,
around,
it's
yeah.
awesome.
And
One of the
I
ways
did
we
see some
describe
janky
Arrakeen
desync
Crisis
in the open beta weekend.
It is spawning
Right.
stories,
And I
that's
saw it
why
in some of the
these tense
videos.
locations
You know,
like
Melee
Overland
especially
World
could be a bit of a
Map, it
mess.
does spawn these
So hopefully they're continuing to work on that. But it definitely wasn't any worse than what I see in
you make
SC.
friends, you make enemies, and that's really important.
It wasn't even as bad as some of what I've seen in recent days in SC.
100%.
The power of multiplayer, right?
Yes, like I remember, like we had a lot of really cool. Before we go back to actually delivering the spice, we had actually a lot of really cool moments from streamers and players and YouTube content creators about the beta weekend or from the beta weekend. And I remember one moment. I call it the GTA moment, where one of the streamers, I think, he was harvesting
one.
something or something.
Yeah.
Or no, he was
getting-
downed.
He was downed by an enemy.
He was
Yeah,
downed but not
yeah,
out.
yeah.
And then the
Yes,
other one
yeah.
comes in and just drives over the enemy that was like targeting him,
Yes.
and he couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah,
It's like these little moments that make, that create those stories that are so fun to share as well and are unique to you then. And it's like, and that is, I think, where for me, that satisfaction of really creating those worlds comes.
Yeah, I think is one of the things, like we get a bit of I mean, it's fine, like we get feedback like, oh, jank, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, being able to stand on top of an ornithopter is janky. It is, but when they asked me if we should remove that, I said no.
No.
Surfing on an ornithopter is actually,
It's very cool.
why isn't that cool? Like, why isn't that something we want? So like sometimes, yeah, we make those choices as well. Like it's like, yeah, this might look a little weird sometimes, But you know what? It's way more fun when you can do it.
feature, yes,
it's way more fun when you can do it.
The meta on...
And then add the suspensor belts.
Surfing on
And being able to
shooting
glide
people
down
with
from
assault
after
rifles.
being on top of the
We fixed some
ornithopter.
of the assault rifle issues.
All right, so let's go back into delivering the spice now. Oh, actually, no, let's talk a little more. I actually wanted to ask you both a question. You actually have answered that recently in an interview. But
Notice the
that's
way
not the
that,
reason I'm asking, because I
that
have
large
time to do that anyway.
carrier
It's like,
bumped over
what
the
is
smaller ornithopters and it didn't turn
each of
into
you's
a
favorite
physics
thing in the game?
nightmare
you
like it
mentioned a few
would in
things that
Star
we saw,
Citizen.
like the transport ornithopter and stuff. But I'm pretty sure there's other things that you're particularly proud of.
So, survival games for me, one of the best things they do is they make the world more interactable than other genres, right? So I think the team has done a great job of like using the harvesting system. Not only does the cut array like cut up the resources and get it, but you come across these like ripped ornithopters. And every time I come across
I don't know,
like,
Jay.
wings and getting the
I don't
resources
know.
from it, it just feels great.
I'm
right?
not sure
It
she's part of the deal.
makes the game grounded. So I would say that whole entire system there is really unique with what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I think I'm thinking about the one that I mentioned in the interview as well, probably. But like the Dew Reaper, and the way that you, because I like. Look, I made Conan. We made Conan, and Conan's a bit more stock standard in the survival sense, right? You're chopping down trees and you're harvesting rocks. And when it came to Dune, we had the design principle of like make your designs fit Dune, do not make Dune fit your designs. And it was like, what is harvesting water look like in Dune? And there's a line in the book where Duke Leto is looking out a window and the sun's rising and there's all these people out in the fields harvesting dew off the flowers. And you're like, that's how precious water is on this planet. And that's a moment that our game needs to have. And so it isn't just like the confluence, it's like, yeah, it's cool, this action of like sweeping the dew off the top of plants using this little Holtzman field that drains the water up into, and like, not only did the animation team and the effects team nail that, and the audio team got like all of that works, but it's also like the back end, the time of day, checking when the dew harvest time is optimal, filling.
Yes,
like, so
I saw a video talking
like,
about this, man. It's not the kind of basic,
filling,
if you
just
scoop it,
leading
you
on
just
full of
get
water,
X.
because
It does
understood the
depend
game
on the
system, you
temperature,
understood
the ambient
timing.
air temperature, and
All
the
of those
timing.
things come together.
They really
Create
put a
an
lot of
experience
thought
that
into some of this stuff. It's very
I think
impressive.
for me, it's just like, you can't have this experience in any game except Dune. And to me, that's like.
And there
the
are
most
UE
precious thing
elements
about it.
that you
I
can
feel like
use
it's
to check that
it's
stuff so that
good
you
when all
know
those
when
things
it's
come
the
together.
right
Like,
time.
As a developer, that's just the most
CIG.
rewarding stuff, right? And it feels good. And it doesn't. I don't really care if anyone else likes it because I love it so much. No, because I think it really nails it, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't speak more
preciousness
highly of
of
how
water
cool
in
that
Dune.
works, right?
Totally
And
get it,
shout out to the
yes.
team who worked on it and everybody who did their part.
100%. No,
Because
I get
ready.
that.
Because games are made by teams, right?
To
That's the other
refine
thing.
spice.
Yes, absolutely. So
Yeah.
we actually made it now to the Quartermaster, and we are
So we're going to deliver
delivered the
spice.
spice. Yes.
Try to win the Landsraad. Okay, so these
Took a while
guys,
to get back.
these guys ask you, you know, so you, because you're sort of you're a minor house or a minor house under the umbrella of the Atreides, you deliver Landsraad bribes to the quartermasters of the Atreides, and they make sure they get where they're supposed to go. So now we're delivering for House Alexan, we're delivering spice, and the House Alexan are a part of the manufacturing unit, which is where they, and so we're delivering 500 spice melange, and then they're going to make sure that it reaches them, and then that will, in a moment, change the Landsraad. So you can see how you have an impact now. So Landsraad is there under the social tab. This board refreshes every so often, so it's been a few seconds since the last refresh. Now we should be able to see our borders refreshed with a certain amount of spice. Oh, we didn't go to Alexan. You're on the wrong one. You need to go to Alexan. It's in the middle.
The middle.
Yes, and then we can see that we've delivered some spice, and the goal amount has gone up.
Oh,
So
I
you
see.
can see that we've
6,000
increased
out
our
of
goal
70,000.
So we've worked towards.
Yes.
So it does
we have
require
like
an
once
awful
we-
lot of work, but
once we
that's
hit
very cool.
70,000 points, and we can do any of these activities to earn points, like the control point. We can
claim those,
Yeah,
yeah,
we can
those
deliver
fields.
spice melange. But once we've
Management is a real
done
issue
that-
there
that
at
census
CIG.
square, then
They've got to
it'll
find their
flip to
focus.
the Atreides and say that we've
And they're
claimed it.
running out of time to do it. to be honest,
So
with
that's-
Squadron 42 coming on the way.
Great.
Nice.
So that was a little bit of a glimpse of what mid and end game can look like. Obviously, that totally depends on what you like to play and how you like to play. There's quite a lot of options. We showed you a few of them, an approach of what can be done.
We're also jamming like dozens of hours of gameplay into like a very quick
Yes,
presentation.
100%. Like this is very like preparation is everything, which is of course true for the game specifically as well. But before we dive into the Q&A, we are gonna take a quick look at the Mentats.
Captured in engine, it says, with my head in the way.
You're not quite dead.
Great plot.
Developed out of the need to replace thinking machines, the Mentats, trained on the principles of philosopher Gilbertus Albans, became one of the most important people in the Imperium. Able to calculate immense amounts of data and devise complex strategies, they are the most advanced tacticians on the battlefield. Combined with advanced assassination and combat technology, you will be able to think many steps ahead of your enemies. With
Portable
a
shields.
significantly higher cognition, as a Mentat, you can calculate trajectories and weapon handling to find weak points in an opponent's defense, or even guide the calculations of an external sentinel.
You can get passive skills that will increase your damage from ranged weapons and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff built into the
A
trees.
Mentat is an expert in assassination technology, using poison capsules to trap enemies in a cloud of death. Or when out of sight, send in a hunter-seeker before the enemy has even noticed your presence. For a tactical advantage, the Mentats have devised further development of Imperial technology, such as the shield group for extra.
Now, you are limited to 3 abilities equipped at a time, although it's relatively easy to change which ones you have equipped.
Throughout the dunes of Arrakis, any school can be.
And of course, you can mix those 3 abilities from each job.
Increasing
What's
your
up, Scotty?
mental capacity and further advancing your tactical.
Yeah, well, you're not wrong about
will
breaking
let
the
you
game.
hold the strategic advantage in any situation.
Lots of possibilities.
But to reach the highest tactical operation, adopting other schools of thought will increase your mental complexity, opening up further possibilities. Focus your mind and calculate each step forward to find the optimal probability for your survival on Arrakis.
I watched a video from a content creator who was testing weapons during the beta weekend. Apparently, there's no sniper glint in Dune Awakening. Go figure. CIG only worries about how to sell the next ship. Yeah.
All right,
well,
and we are back for our Q&A.
no way.
So our wizards behind the screens and behind the cameras are gonna throw up questions that have been collected.
It
right
is
now,
bullshit.
as we told. Fantastic.
Before anybody asks any questions, though, I just want to make a reveal of my own.
Nice.
Special
Oh.
toe shoes today for everybody's.
They look really cool though.
They are cool.
But
No.
it also looks a bit like Hobbit feet, to be fair.
Yeah.
Like at least close up, Chad. So it's good you have a little bit of a. It's good you don't have
Not
close
for all the money in the world.
From what I understand, they're very healthy though. They're very big.
That's the purpose of a sniper, is to be undetected. Exactly.
That's what they say.
I started wearing them 10 years ago and I'm still
Still
fat,
not
so I don't know. Maybe
Super
they're,
healthy.
maybe they're not working out.
Well, your feet are very healthy.
My
Let's go
feet
there.
are massively
Yeah.
healthy.
Super
Sorry, all
healthy.
right, enough
All right.
distraction. I apologize.
No, you don't have to.
The toe reveal was important
You don't have
me.
to. We wouldn't want you any other way.
Yeah, I don't know either.
All right. Rui's probably gonna kill me now.
Yeah.
All right.
We want him every other way.
Every other way. No. It's all good. Like it's also you guys make a really nice. You complement each other really well.
I've got
Scott is-
pants. He doesn't have pants.
Exactly. He has toe shoes. You actually wear socks as well. So it's just like it's a whole balance thing. It's
Yes.
Yeah.
all
Nice.
right. All right.
Oh, wow, a month,
While we
huh?
still wait on the questions, they're still collecting some of them.
Nobody has
give
any
them a little
questions.
bit of maybe no one has
We've
questions.
answered
Perfect.
every possible question
I
people
wish.
could have. Is
Right,
fully
I
I'm
wish.
sure.
Like
That's it, Joel.
That's kind of both the blessings and the blessing and the challenge of Dune Awakening. I think is just it has so many aspects of different games. You know that we really tried to put together and have people try and understand.
Were you there when I was like presenting to the press about the game and I was calling Funcom morons for taking
Yes, of course I was there. I was expecting headlines. We didn't get a single headlines. We didn't get a single headlines like that. Funcoms are morons.
Well,
Chief Creative Director says.
Well, we are like we keep trying to, you know, like
It does
it's one of the
put some things in perspective.
I love about working here.
I mean, you know,
Is like they
12,
let me
13
do
years
crazy
in,
stuff.
Yeah.
They let me try and do weird shit.
and what do we
I mean,
have
it's like-
with
it's
Star
like I
Citizen
could- you
versus
could work somewhere
4
where
to
you're
5
doing the
years?
same game every
What have
year,
they turned
speaking of
in?
reskins.
You know,
And you're making the exact same thing.
it's a
and you're
difference
winning
of
these
scope.
stocks, and it's
I'm
like
not going to pretend it isn't. Star
I do
Citizen's
like that we're
massive.
allowed to push beyond those
But-
things, right? And try hard.
I love the attitude here, and I love what I'm seeing.
Jank, but man, it's I don't know. I feel like
think
it's like the
I agree though. I think one thing you can't say about us is that we like it easy.
no, exactly.
like-
We're morons. We make it
In
hard
some
for ourselves
ways,
every
I
time.
kind of
It's what we were
feel
talking
like
about at the
this
beginning, right?
team
It's- we make unique games,
feels a
right?
bit
We take
more
risks.
like a young CIG.
Sometimes it means that we
Right?
make divisive decisions, but I think that's what was great about the beta, right? Is like people got to see what the true experience was. Oh, and here is
Exactly. So we're ready actually for the questions. So is that Lopil 125? Is the exchange global or per server?
It is per world. So the world is what we call a container of all the Haga Basin that you will play and interact with, right? So there are hundreds of worlds, so it is not global.
Yeah, it is one deep desert per world,
Yeah.
2 social hubs per world, and then many Haga basins per world, and that is what we call a world. And yeah, as Scott says, at launch there are hundreds of worlds to choose from, right? And within each world, there's many Haga basins to choose from.
Right.
Yep.
All right. And Speak asks, are the Overland Map dungeons instanced per player? Can you do them as a group, or are they open like the social hubs?
The answer is that they are not instance for a group. They are per player, and they are not open like the social hubs.
They are instanced, though.
Yes, they are
To a
instanced.
limit.
To a limit.
So several people in the same world can be doing the same, like
Yeah,
the
single.
water fat
Yeah.
mansion. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which are kind of our only instant content in that way,
Yes.
in
Yes.
that sense.
Yep. Correct.
That's
Jolly Foxtrot
interesting.
TV asks, how do the different circuits work?
Oh, they basically isolate resources so that they can only be used if they're on that circuit. And then you can set a circuit for the, it's a little bit hard in the UI, but you can set like a machine's input and output circuit
Yes.
that way. And so that's kind of
Yeah.
the extent with it.
Like draw from this storage, deliver to this storage when you're finished, right? Like and that's
Basically,
how this,
yeah.
This group of
Yeah,
connected
and,
items.
yeah, exactly. And you can set a certain number of storages. per
I think the
circuit.
circuits thing is one of those things that's going to be immensely useful as time goes on for the players in the game. I'm glad they added that.
Balance between Harkonnen and Atreides.
There are systems. I think I talked about this in that other.
You
when I got
you
that
just
question.
mentioned as well as
I
like
hedged it
we
last time.
have, but
We
you
have
didn't
some
want to
systems,
spoil
but I'm
it,
not going
which
to
we
talk too
should
much
exactly,
about.
exactly.
And then when we introduce a third faction, which we are planning to, it will also have a role in that balance. But that's basically what I can say right now. But ensure is very hard. Like it's very hard to like be 100% certain because, you know, when you give players choice, they choose. And so you can't guarantee that it's going to be 100%, not 100% people on Atreides on a world. But I think we have pretty good systems in place to make sure that at least feels like it balances itself out pretty well.
Yes, and the deep desert is not Atreides versus Harkonnen.
Yes.
It is every
Yes.
person for themselves, right? So even if Harkonnen are kind of
thought so.
dominating a server or they're 60-40,
Other
they're
Harkonnen
going
groups
to
will
fight
be
themselves.
feeding off of the other
Well,
Harkonnen
actually, there's
groups.
something I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Landsraad. Like the Landsraad, you can see the different within
top
the
guilds.
factions who the top guilds are and who contributed the most. Because a part of the Dune thing is that like it isn't that like everybody in Atreides is a monolith. It's actually like people want the Duke's attention, so they want to be further up And the same with the Harkonnen, right? Like I want the Baron to, witness me, so I'm trying to get to the top of the
Witness
the list of
me!
guilds. So there should be inter-guild competition even within the factions. So they overall are working towards the common goal of the Landsraad, but they're trying to beat each other to be the best in the Landsraad, so they have the most voting power, they get the rewards, etc.
Yeah, especially also because like one Atreides guild might be focused on PvP, the other one might be super opposed to PvP.
Yep.
So they definitely don't want the PvP guild to like get, we want full PvP. So
Yes.
they will, work against them and like,
Yes.
we want to be top because we want to have more say in which decree we're actually going to have next week.
Yeah, like exactly.
So-
a crafting guild's going to want the crafting decrees.
Exactly,
And
yes.
they're not going to want the PvP full loot decree, right? So
Exactly,
there's going to be
yes.
that kind of competition even within the factions.
Yes, exactly.
So, yep, good question.
Cypher asks, can our bases get raided?
So not in Hogga Basin. They will be safe in Hogga Basin. In the deep deserts, it's a bit different.
Yeah, in the PvE section of the Deep Desert, no.
Yeah.
But in the PvP section of the Deep Desert, there is a mechanism by which bases have a vulnerability window where they can be raided. It is a very short vulnerability window, and again, I would point to the lore of the Dune universe. So I'm sorry for everybody who hasn't read the books and
It's got to
doesn't
do
know
with the
a
shields.
way in
It's
which
got to be.
shields can go down for a brief period of time, but it is worth looking into because then
I'm
you'll
thinking
understand
atomics.
exactly how the mechanics can work. And I
I'm
know being
thinking some kind of
needlessly
bomb.
cryptic, but I'm sure there's people spamming in the chat about it already.
Let them figure it out. Oldman Alchemist, if I don't take the mission to talk with House Atreides or Harkonnen, will I be content locked as far as progressing, sorry,
No, that's
the
fine.
main story and the ability to craft?
No.
Yeah, no. The story, I mean, while it involves House Atreides and the Harkonnen, it is
Interesting.
not about that. It's about you.
I'm glad.
role on
That's
Dune.
great.
It's your quest to
I
find
totally
family,
expected the
basically,
answer to
right?
that to be
So the
yes,
main
that
story
you were
follows
going to
that,
have to pick a
What
side.
we were talking about and what
You
we were
don't.
showing earlier with the different
That's going to make a lot of
faction
people super
unlocks, like, in
happy.
terms of the visuals and those things you're locked out of if you don't want to join a faction.
But those
You
are
can't get,
pure vanity.
but they're pure vanity, right?
No mechanics.
But yeah, you can't. But one thing you cannot join the Landsraad unless you have aligned yourself with a faction. Your guild must be aligned with a faction to participate.
That makes
in the
sense.
Landsraad. That is the one hard
for
requirement that I think. faction
Small
alignment
groups,
has. That's it.
soloists,
Otherwise,
that may
yeah,
not
you can
matter
do
because
all
they
the
don't really
content
have
without
a
joining the
voice in the Landsraad
I
anyway,
also
right?
think when it comes to progressing, during the beta weekend, you were still very much in the tutorialization part of the game,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So I know that some players were like, whoa, this is very linear and things. But the thing is, things open up quite more once you're past that tutorialization section as well. So you won't be actually locked progressing when it comes to crafting or where you spend your points.
Yeah, and in the
Intel
opening
points specifically.
in the opening of the game, after character creation, you actually get a choice as to whether you want to play with an unlocked tech tree or a locked tech tree. The reason we put that there is so that people who are advanced survival players or people who've played Dune before can just go, okay, I want the unlocked tech tree, I know what I'm doing. But I recommend, and we recommend, that the locked tech tree is for people who are playing the game for the first time and really, because there are so many...
It's a tutorial
we've
mode.
talked about it a lot today. There are so many mechanics that are just kind of Dune mechanics that we want people to learn, and we need to teach them. And it's going to be hard for you to know what to do. Like, you don't know about dew reaping and times of day when you should be out harvesting dew unless you follow the tutorials that we put in place for that, right? So it's just that.
Or that you need to go to shipwrecks to craft better weapons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Koopa is asking, is there a level cap
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe we're at 200
Yeah.
currently?
currently.
But you can respec.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's, I believe it's on a 48-hour
And that's
cycle.
200.
So even if you cap out and you play something and you decide you don't like it, you can
Yeah.
switch to something else.
And
Yeah.
there's a point where you run out of, you stop getting unlock points for your tech tree, intel points. And then we have a mechanic in the game for you to go around and unlock more intel points by going to bases in the world, like enemy bases and outposts. So there's a level cap that puts a stop to some of those progression things, and then the next step from there is for you to go and explore more and enjoy the game more.
Because we
I
do
think-
want to make some choices. Right?
Yes.
That's the first time I had heard that.
Also, there's different level and skill point caps, right? Because you have a character level, you have skill points, and you have intel points. So
Yes.
there's 3 different
Yes.
caps that you
Yeah,
particularly
exactly.
hit. K69N is asking, is it possible to lose all your gear in PvP?
So not Not in PvP in the base level. In the deep desert, you lose resources that you're carrying, Solari and Spice. And you take durability damage to some of your gear, right? That's what happens every time you die, PvE or PvP. But if there's a specific decree from the Landsraad which enables full loot PvP in the deep desert for 1 week, then that's the only time in the game where you can lose all your gear in PvP. That's it.
Or if you're fighting in the sand and the sandworm comes in.
And the worm eats you. Yeah.
I guess you can lose all your gear in PvP, but we count the...
Yeah,
is the sandworm PvP?
If the worm eats you, you lose everything. You wake up naked. That's
100%.
part of the mechanic there for the worm.
Wolfie 1974. Are we going to be able to get blueprints that devs made of their bases?
Oh, the Tor Eagle presents.
Exactly. This is Tor Eagle presents. That's actually very cool. I love that idea. That's actually a very cool idea.
Maybe we can fill up some vendors post-launch with some of our
I was
cremates.
I was just about to say I don't think players should actually pay for them per se, but we should, or maybe they need to. I don't know.
You don't want copies of my bases.
I mean, you shouldn't. No, actually, let me rephrase that. We shouldn't have a dev sell those items in game, but we can sell it via NPC.
Sure, yeah,
That's what I meant, right?
Maybe we can put a vendor or something.
That'd
like
be cool.
that.
Yeah, like you
Yeah,
mentioned.
maybe a vendor in the world can sell some blueprints.
You see, like Tor Eagle bases
Tor Eagle's
everywhere.
the guy. Tor Eagle's the builder among us. Mine would just be no one
Mine
wants,
are boxes.
No one wants to see
Yeah.
I'm the guy who tests TTP
New dog houses.
TTP every time.
Yes.
So
I'm sure we're gonna have players who make fantastic buildings. Okay, Quintinovich is asking, will GeForce now be in Dune Awakening?
I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's
I have no idea.
discussions going on.
There's
at least.
discussions. I can't remember what the last is, but people are looking at it. Yeah.
I don't have Slack open, otherwise you could check.
GeForce
Someone
Now
is
is
like
the
hammering
streaming
messages
service,
to
right?
me
Yeah,
online.
so
It's like
the question, I guess, would be, will Dune Awakening be on GeForce Now for streaming?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what I
Yep.
interpreted.
I don't
as
know
well.
the answer. I'm sorry, but Scott.
Yeah, I don't think I have an official answer, but I believe so. But yeah.
Helping Hans, how do you balance the council wins? If one side gets unique weapons, won't that side have a better chance to win the next vote down the line?
Not necessarily, because the tasks for the Landsraad are pulled from, so there's 25 tasks per week, and there's a pool of 400 tasks that can potentially show up. So you, first of all, don't necessarily know what's going to be there. Unique weapons doesn't actually influence everything. Some of the tasks are kill tasks. You don't know which tasks are going to be revealed first. You also have to bribe Landsraad envoys with spice to reveal tasks. And if your faction does it before the other faction, you'll see, okay, we need to do this. So you might just get ahead because you had more spice or whatever. It's not going to come down to unique weapons. Absolutely not. That's not going to be the thing that means that one side gets a sudden landslide kind of advantage. So I think that's the best way to answer that, I think, from my perspective.
I think that's a great answer too, and I think it just goes again into people are a little bit too afraid that everything is about PvP and fighting endgame, and that's absolutely not the case.
Yeah.
And hopefully we explained that a little bit today as well for people to feel a bit more relaxed about that, or disappointed, depending. Dr. Evil Eye, is there any content or materials that are hidden behind PvP, meaning that the only way to obtain that item gear material is to risk losing to large guilds?
I wouldn't say hidden, but you can. The deep desert, which we just explained, is a place where tier 6 gear is, like items and materials for crafting those things. You need to go there to get those things. You can buy them off the exchange. You can trade for them with other people. But yes, you have to go to that place in order to get those things. And there is a risk of people attacking you when you're in that place. We tried to explain that this is a very large place. It's not going to be possible for a guild to cover the entire space. It's just not going to be possible.
Yeah. I think guild limit's 32.
The guild limit is 32 people.
Yeah. So one per kilometer.
Yeah, guilds can't be too big.
Yeah, they'd have to stretch all the way across. And even then, I think there's all kinds of tactics and ways to draw them off. And I don't think it's going to be a problem.
There are potentially hundreds and hundreds of people that can be in the deep desert,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So one guild would be outnumbered by 100 people.
Again, if you want to rat, you can rat.
Yeah.
There's options, right?
And also, the tier 6 gear isn't required for the story or for anything that's having to do with like a basin, right? It's sort of just the deep desert loop.
But we can't tell people that they can't get to the top number go up because they really people always want that. So,
there are other ways to get it.
Even though it's not required, you I know people are going to want it.
I feel like it makes sense though, because those people who really care about the highest level tier are probably the PvPers, and they want to be in the deep desert in the first place. So I feel like it's kind of a natural balance there too.
Hopefully we also have, like,
yes, but no.
I think there's this weird.
If the highest tier gear is available, there will definitely be PvE people who want to have it.
Assume that everybody who is a guild in PvP is going to be this toxic, sweaty kind of. And I think it's going to be the opposite. I think we're going to have the good guy guilds who are out there actually protecting people and like helping people out. I've seen it in the beta already. People, I got lost in the desert, help, and people would come and help them.
It'd be interesting to see how this community shakes out in that regard.
In the beta, like just give other people an ornithopter when they lost one because of a bug that was in the game from our end. They're like, "Oh, do you want an ornithopter? I have a spare one." Right? That's it's great to see, and I think that people worry too much about toxicity. Hopefully, we'll keep track of it, of course, but it should be fine.
And you have one player for the entire world, right?
Yeah.
So, and you are your name, right? So you will have some sort of reputation.
Yeah, exactly. There's that as well.
Yeah,
there'll be people moving around.
To more old school MMOs that I grew up with, like EverQuest and all those. But anyway, so we have 2 more questions. Fort Team is asking, do you need a sync chart for each person in your guild?
Yes. You need to create a sync chart for every person who's going to want to reveal those things that you've got in your sync chart.
They're single-use items.
Yeah, they're single-use items, consumables, once you've created them.
And last questions. Neo Valkyrion, can transport ornithopters carry other ornithopters?
Yes, they can.
They can indeed.
They can indeed. I was playing it earlier. I was flying around carrying a medium ornithopter with my
They can pick up pretty much anything.
Yeah.
And again, they have
anything
passengers
vehicular.
too.
Yes, vehicular. Can't pick up people.
No.
Unless they're...
Inside.
They're sitting inside a vehicle. All right. So that was it with the questions for today, and also for our last developer stream before Head Start and the official release. I'm like still like how. Okay, so
like 7 days,
how
8
do
days?
how do you boys feel, gents?
Me
How do you
first?
feel?
Go, Scott.
Pretty good, right?
Pretty good?
So beta went really well from our perspective. Tech was
it
stable,
does seem
that's what we're
pretty
always
friendly and
worried about.
supportive. I've seen some
Because we knew the
differences
game
of
was
opinion in the Reddit subreddit for Dune, but overall it doesn't seem nearly as salty as 13 years of Star Citizen has bred. Not that I think that all Star Citizens are salty all the time, but there's a lot less contention.
The client crash rate was within our acceptable tolerance, and we're fixing most of the issues that we found. So cautiously optimistic, right? Incredibly excited to show the entire game, and so yeah. But the last week is always
It's like it's 5 years of your life, right? And it's like I think that's the thing that I think is like what I'm not sure people understand. Is like when you've been living and breathing this kind of thing for 5 years, and then like you see the game industry is volatile. Things don't go well for people.
5 years.
Team of, that I love to work with. We have a team of great people that we've built over the last years, and it's like it isn't about like success in the sense of like
they didn't have to build a company.
Like it is a game.
I'm defending CIG a little bit,
right? And I've played it, and
but I think what they've done seems really impressive
from the beta
compared to what CIG has done.
I want my team to be together making games for a long time, right? So for me, this is like I'm nervous about that, right? Like the gaming industry is not a safe place anymore, right? It's not easy to guess what's going to be successful.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm watching things and like you see things that are fantastic from small teams going great, like and there's been some fantastic games this year and games that you wouldn't have predicted coming out of nowhere, like Schedule 1 is a great one, but also like Claire Obscura, I'd heard of it, but I hadn't heard of it until really it blew up. And so you see these games, these huge successes. So I think it's like, you don't want to have the arrogance to think that you could be among that, but you hope. And that's kind of where I'm at least. I'm hoping we strike a vibe. I'm hoping that all the decisions that we made, and there's 10,000 decisions on a gaming project, right? There's 10,000 decisions, and every one of them is about moving towards a goal, right? Towards a vision, a creative vision, a vision of a universe, a vision that a guy created in 1963 when he wrote a book, right? And that's, I don't know, like I'm extremely nervous, but that's what we're trying to get to, right? And that's, I hope, what people feel when they play the game is, yeah, okay, you nailed it, right? Like that's what we want.
And I feel like we've made an amazing Dune game, right?
Yeah.
And it's the first where you're walking right on Arrakis. And you're experiencing Paul's journey.
We're skipping 2001's Frank Herbert's Dune,
but for me, right, in a modern sense anyway. So it's and we have a story we want to tell. People saw a really short glimpse of it in the beta, but there's so much more going through the rest of Act 1 and Act 2, right?
I'm really looking forward to the
and
story
there's this long
too.
story that we
I need
want
a
to
good
tell
story
over the,
game.
You know, like
On top of the fact that
10
I'm really
years,
gung ho
Yes.
to try the
Things
building
to
and
learn.
survival
Yeah.
stuff,
So
man.
we have a long story. We want to continue releasing updates, you know, every 3-4 months with additions to that story, in addition to the DLCs that we're going to come out.
They've
So
talked
when
about
you buy the
10
game,
years
you're getting everything here
content.
right now, plus all the story content that
Yeah.
we'll continue to release over the next years.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're excited. It's a lot of pressure,
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll do fine.
There's no guarantees in Love and War, but you know what? I'll say this for the record. I'm really proud of our team and what they've done. And like,
I think it
no
was the
matter
right
what
call as
happens,
well.
All of them can hold their
Yeah, I
heads
think
up high
UE5
because
was
they
the way
have
to go.
Worked really hard to bring this to fruition.
Absolutely, shout out to our teams, the many teams that work on this game
Yeah,
with
yeah.
all different departments.
Every department.
And
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, it's a beast of a game. I think we
It
can
is a
say
beast.
that.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
I'm
what's
actually
up, Babus?
getting
How you
goosebumps,
doing?
I'm sorry. I'm actually literally getting goosebumps. I'm such
I've been
a-
skipping
I'm
the
sorry.
ads,
Such a-
so one's going to
such
roll
a-
on here in 4
anyway.
minutes. I can't do anything about it now, but I
that's
think
a
we've
wonderful
missed.
note to end
We've skipped the
these, again,
bulk of them
lots
today. I
hours
apologize to
today.
anybody that gets hammered with an ad in a minute.
On for
It's good to see you, Vapus. Hope you've been doing well.
Head Start and release. One thing we can actually say is that you will be able to upgrade your editions on the 10th of January. So there will be an option.
10th of June, I
10th
think.
of sorry, June. Oh my God! I just that
January.
wonderful ending. I just completely read.
People had asked
Anyway.
about being able to
Throw it here.
upgrade their standard editions because, of course, they want
Yes. So
to have the,
10th of June. When
deluxe
the
goodies,
goes
but it'll be
full
after the
release, you'll be able
launch.
to upgrade your editions. Should you want to do
been
that?
super busy with work. I hope it's all the right kind of busy.
And we'll be ending. Thank you so much again,
Yeah.
Scott and Joel, for
Thank
being
you,
here
Natasha.
during out of your busy schedules. So we really appreciate it, talking to us. And we'll have a last trailer. And with that, I thank everyone for watching and joining us today. And hopefully, you'll enjoy what's coming your way.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. See you on Thursday.
Yeah. Cheers.
Again, captured in engine. This thing, it doesn't look like new footage, though.
You're not quite.
Good deal. Making money is important these days, for sure.
Plots are afoot in the Imperium. And the currents of intrigue run deeply. You will go to Arrakis as our agent. You have one task. Find the Fremen. Wake the sleeper.
You were sighted fleeing the scene of a terrible crash. Who are you?
You've heard the expression, the spice must flow. I am the man who ensures that it continues to do so.
I dreamed of you. Birth
I'm really looking
fire,
forward to it.
twin comets in the sky.
I enjoyed the little bit of it that I saw.
I am terrified of what happens when you awaken.
We've all lost our way. You can complete the mission.
Every person carries their past with them. Who are you?
I love that voice actor. He had a prominent role in SWTOR during the Eternal Empire stuff. He's got that creepy vibe down pat. And I can't wait. I'm excited. I can't wait to get in. I will definitely be streaming it on the 5th. As soon as I'm able to play it, I will probably no-life this game for a while. I am looking forward to it. Well, that was a really good live stream. I'm glad that I watched it because I was like, you know what? I don't know if I want to do this today because we were doing garden stuff, but I'm glad I did. Yeah, it was great. I can't wait. I can't wait to see more. I am definitely excited. All right, I am going to wrap up now. I appreciate everybody watching with me and hanging out and all of that stuff. I will be back to streaming again tomorrow. You know what? I do not know if I will stream Star Citizen tomorrow. I have not watched any of the other live streams, right? The other 3 live streams, and there's a couple hours of video watching there to do. So I may get caught up on some of the videos for Dune tomorrow. Because right now, I tried to log into PTU Star Citizen today, and it was a bit of a shit show anyway, and they kicked me out. They didn't really kick me out, but I got caught a server error that just lingered for like 20 minutes, and I was like, you know what, never mind. That's why I didn't stream Star Citizen the beginning of the day today. Because I wanted to have a look at the new storms and stuff on Pyro 1 and maybe get a peek at the Lazarus outposts and all of that kind of stuff. But tomorrow I have a feeling it's going to be a Dune day, and I'm going to get caught up on the rest of the videos. Given that we're kind of doing the Dune thing, I'm not going to raid out today, but I do appreciate everybody hanging out. I will see y'all tomorrow, and I'm going to get this saved and probably save it as my first react video to Dune on freaking YouTube, because I need to start making some YouTube content. And now that I've got another game that I'm excited about doing something with and kind of feel like I'm getting in really early as a content creator, we're going to do some of that stuff. I definitely will, Vapist, and I will be checking in with Star Citizen here periodically. It's not like I'm fixing to run off and stop playing it. I just need I need CIG to get their stuff together and let stuff cook until it settles and then build a game, right? My problem with SC right now is there's way too much disparate, disconnected stuff that just does not play well together and doesn't feel like it's part of a cohesive whole, right? So as CIG figures that out, yes, there's an inferred if in there, then I'll check in periodically, but probably for at least weeks, if not a few months here, I will be predominantly switching over to streaming Dune, at least from the 5th of June on, because I'm ready for a game that I can really sink my teeth into that isn't SC. Yeah, I know. And part of that's my fault with the ads. And I know you can't hear what I'm saying because I snoozed the ads several times there to keep them from running over the video content. So I know the pre-rolls hit hard, or the lack of pre-rolls hit hard there. Thank you very much, Vapist. I appreciate it. The ads are not quite done yet. I'll finish saying what I was going to say when that's done. But I hate the ads so much. I do. I hate them. All right. You guys, hopefully y'all are all back. I apologize for the long ad break there at the end while I was trying to wrap up, because I had snoozed the periodic ads there 3 times, trying to keep it from running over the live stream that we were watching. But anyway, like I said, I will be back at it tomorrow. Thank you all so much for hanging out. I'm excited about Dune. If the ads ran that over, I will say that I'll be predominantly streaming Dune for at least a while once the early access starts. I'm going to be all in on early access really hard. We'll see how things go. They didn't answer the one question that I did ask on the live stream, was how are they going to keep the early access servers from becoming ghost towns once the regular servers open up on the 10th, and a lot of people hop from the early access servers to the new regular servers because they want to join the rest of their friends that did not buy the deluxe editions I had kind of hoped they would answer that question, but they did not. What I'm actually hoping is we'll get a world, and they will, if there's going to be 100 Haga basins on a world, that they'll only open 50 of them for early access. And then when they open the servers on the 10th, they'll add another 50 Haga basins to that stack so that people who want to join, those of us that start early access, have a chance to do so. So we'll see how it goes. Well, their server meshing is completely different, but it'll be interesting to see, right? I want to see how it plays out. I'm kind of hoping I won't be spending 5 days on something that I'm going to discard when I join a new server. But if that's the way it is, that's fine with me. I don't care. I'm ready to play. And we're used to the periodic resets in Star Citizen. So, you know, we'll deal with it. And then once we get done with that reset, we'll be done with resets. Anyway, I am going to get out. I'm in full ramble mode now. Again, y'all, thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it. I'll see y'all tomorrow. We'll probably catch up on, like I said, the Dune live streams that I have not watched until now. Until then, y'all, stay safe, stay healthy, because being sick sucks, and I will see y'all around the verse. Appreciate everybody dropping by. Y'all definitely have a good one. Somewhere here I have whatever button I'm looking for here. Where did it go? There it is. All right. Take it easy, everybody. Peace out.